Board of Education tax rate hearing, August 25th, 2015. Call this meeting to order. Mr. Barr.
Thank you, President Koch. Yes, we hold this tax levy hearing every year. This time of year, the state law asks us to submit our tax levy, which we will next week by September 1 to the counties. But this hearing is for the public. We published an ad in the Joplin Globe that gave a snapshot of what the board's going to consider later this evening in terms of an action item, and we published the last year's assessed valuation, real estate and personal property, compared it to this year's assessed valuation. The total is up by $12 million. And then we also show on there our proposed tax rate for 2015 at $2.75 for the general fund, 0 for the special revenue fund, 91 cents for the debt service fund, and $0 for the capital projects fund. As we've said often, those two zero funds, the special revenue fund shares the operating levy that's in the general fund, as well as the general fund levy transfers over to the capital projects fund is where how we pay for our capital projects. So those two are zero levy funds. We have, as I said, we did publish in the Joplin Globe. And of course, the hearing's open for the public. If you want to approach the mic, feel free. I'll just give a little background. This is the exact same total levies we had last year and in prior years since we had the 2012 bond issue pass. The levy has been the same total. As I said, we're going to submit by September 1st to the county clerks, and the levy will generate at a 93% collection rate, generate estimated taxes in the amount of $29.3 million for this year we're in currently. So with that, President Koch, I turn it over to the rest of the hearing and public comment, should there be any. We will have this action item later on in the regular agenda. I'll bring this up for an action and a vote.
Seeing that there's no public comments, I adjourn this meeting and we'll start the regular session. Welcome everybody to August 25th's regular session of the Joplin Schools Board of Education meeting. Call this meeting to order. Pat, please do roll call, please.
Linda Van Moore, present. Debbie Ford,
Present.
Sally Beard,
Here.
Ron Gatz,
Present.
Jeff Coe,
Present.
Jennifer Martucci,
Present.
Larry Hopper.
Here.
Thank you.
If you could all join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before I ask for a motion to approve the agenda, there are two items that I'd like to see if we can get adjusted. Under the superintendent's data report, and you want to take that one first?
Yeah, we'll put that first.
We'll put this in front of the summer school report. It's an emergency response report. It has to do with the recent activities in McDonald County. Superintendent would like to say a few words. And then second, item number 6 under the regular agenda.
Let's see,
No, it's number 7 now.
Yes.
Yep, number 7, which is the Project Hope grant. I'd like to pull that from the agenda. There'll be some activity to bring at a later date. I'd be happy to entertain a motion to make those two amendments.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
could I also request that number 7 in the consent agenda, the financial statements, be moved to the regular agenda?
Sure.
So they could be discussed?
We'll put that at the bottom of regular agenda. Any other changes? Consent items?
I move approval of the agenda as corrected.
Okay.
Second.
So Ron moved. It's been seconded. All in favor, please? Aye. Okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We'll come back.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. We'll circle up after. So let's do that again. Would you please vote?
Yes.
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 Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Make sure, and yes, it's a little easier to see who's talking when we all go. Okay, so those two items are done. Starting with the board president's report. As you're all likely aware, the Joplin City Council approved the creation of the South Main TIF at their meeting on August 17th. Paul presented the City Council with a letter from the district that stated the Board of Education's opposition to the creation of the TIF. Dr. Reeder also spoke about the effects that TIFs have on free enterprise. Unfortunately, they were not able to find one additional vote to side with the district to oppose the creation of the TIF, and it passed on a 5-3 margin. We were, however, able to convince the city to only support the TIF for 16 years rather than the 23 that is allowed. We should continue to monitor the impact of the TIFs in our area, continue to share our concerns when they arise. That was after our action item last month. Board committee updates. Finance committee.
We have not been.
There wasn't a meeting because we had just approved the budget two meetings before. Policy committee, did you guys have a meeting?
We did, and facilities rental fees are addressed, and we'll be voting on this,
Okay.
and that was our discussion.
Okay. Facilities committee?
Facilities Committee did not.
Okay. And communications committee, we met and had our Eagle Legacy Award, and that was presented to Dana Snodgrass at the opening day for the teachers on the 17th. So we haven't met since then.
Would we do that for further, just for future, would you let the board know anything, like if there's something like that that's gonna be public,
Mhm.
let the other board members know before it's announced, just from a committee perspective?
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Are we doing committee reports?
Yes.
Do we have a form for that or format?
I mean, when we're gonna do an announcement of a public award or something like that, it's, I just think it's
Courtesy.
a courtesy to the rest of the board, if we know who that is, that the
No.
board's gonna be awarding to.
No.
Makes sense.
Well noted. Superintendent's data report.
I've had the opportunity to visit with a number of people in the community, and I'm getting messages from all over the map as far as really what the community is expecting of their schools, and so we're going to continue to have those conversations. I've also been in a number of teachers' classrooms, just sitting down with a teacher one-to-one and having a conversation about teachers and what their expectations are and what it means to be able to read a standard and be clear with that standard. And I could tell that there was some progress made last year, but there's a ton of work that we need to do in aligning our system and being more systemic. The real issue is how we use data. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to, part of the issue is how to use data. What we're going to do tonight is start sharing that data with you. But first, we'd like to give you a little bit of a report. Jason, if you come on up, and give a little bit of a report on how we would have reacted. And so, Jason, if you would give, first of all, kind of a summary of what happened at McDonald County, and then also share with the board and also the community what we would have done in a similar situation.
Okay, sure. In the McDonald County situation, what happened there was a young man who had made some threatening remarks, and he said he was going to walk his girlfriend to the McDonald County High School. He was a suspect in burglary and stolen weapons, and so that created a kind of a high alert for the police, and the police were able to figure out where the boy was, and it was in proximity to one of their elementary schools. So they notified the school about the situation, and then the school went into a lockdown situation. So the boy didn't approach the school or anything like that, but the school took the precautions and did a lockdown procedure. If that happens, that actually has happened a few times in Joplin in the past, where whether it was an escaped convict or someone, actually in this building, I think it was 2 years ago, the police said, hey, we've got some concern about someone in that area. And what we do is our first response to something like that is actually a lockout, which is a little different than a lockdown. By doing a lockout approach, all exterior doors are locked and no one's allowed entrance until there's the threats resolved. And what that does is it allows students to go ahead and go from class to class rather than being locked down in a particular room. But it still keeps the environment safe, seals the envelope, so to speak.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay, now I would like to bring Jennifer up, if you would, please. And we're going to share some data with you regarding the summer school.
Okay. Want to go over with you just a summary of our summer school this past summer. Here we go. First, want to start off with what is the purpose of summer school? Why do we have that in session? And it's to provide a safe environment where students continue to grow academically. We want to make, we have 3 goals with that, involved in that. The first one is that we want students who are below grade level to show growth toward proficiency or become proficient in the areas of English language arts and math. Number 2, students at or above grade level will show continual growth to move above proficiency in the areas of English language arts and math. So we want to make sure every student, no matter what level they're on, are showing growth academically in those areas. And then number 3 is that students will be engaged in rigorous, engaging activities in the areas of English language arts, math, and then science as well. As you'll see here in a moment, we do not have an assessment for science, and so, are not able to show growth in that particular area at this time. Enrollment this past summer, we had 258 Jumpstart kindergarten students. We had 577 first through 5th grade students, 130 middle school students, and 301 high school students, with a total of 1,266 total student enrollment in our summer school program. We had 75 teachers and 2 therapists. Data that we have for growth of students in our Jumpstart that was held at McKinley, they took the Ames Webb letter name fluency assessment. On the pre-test, 38% of our students were proficient, and at the end of summer school, which is a 4-week session, 45% of our students were at proficient. Those who showed student growth, that means any kind of growth at all, 56% of our students did show growth. However, 45% again ended at proficiency. In math, we only assess under number ID recognition, recognizing their numbers, and the growth that was there was 42% of students showed growth. At Irving, where we house Jumpstart Kindergarten all the way through 5th grade, you can see that we had growth in letter name proficiency for kindergarten. We had growth in our nonsense word fluency for 1st grade. In 2nd grade, where we basically it's a fluency measure in 2nd and 3rd grade. We did not show growth in proficiency per se. However, we did have students who made academic growth, just not growing the proficient number. And then in fourth grade, we did have growth in both of those. Fourth grade, again, there was not growth in proficiency, however, there was student growth. In fourth and fifth grade took the SRI, which was the Scholastic Reading and Inventory Assessment. And in the math portion, kindergarten number ID, we had 80% of our students who showed growth. Addition, 33% showed growth. Subtraction, 68% had growth. Multiplication, 89%. Multiplication, 97%. And division, 83%. So overall, good growth of our students in just basic math facts. At Soaring Heights, as you can see, throughout the grade levels, again, that's servicing Jump Start Kindergarten all the way through fifth grade. You can see that we did show growth in kindergarten, second grade, third grade, fourth grade. Those were the grades that we showed growth in our proficiency of students, and of course, we had growth of students in all grade levels. And then in math, as you can see, kindergarten, 68% growth, first grade 10%, second grade 28%, third grade 73%, fourth grade 55%, and fifth grade 54%. In middle school, there is no assessment that was taken to show growth in that particular level. There were, again, 130 students and 8 teachers in that particular level. At the high school level, the total number of credits that were recovered in 4 classes were 178. The number of students who were awarded credit for PE, their PE course was 178. And then the total credits earned in the transitions, which are the incoming 9th graders transition course, 17 credits were earned for that. As far as our finance for summer school, total expenditures were $224,034.76. There's a formula that is put out for, they don't necessarily give a summer school separate, but there's a line item for summer school reimbursement. And so Susan Smith did an excellent job of figuring that for me to give me an estimate of what that looked like it would be based off enrollment. It looks like we're looking at about $258,000 reimbursement for summer school. And just to make you aware, obviously that's more than what the expenditure was, but the rest of that would go towards expenditures that don't necessarily come out of the summer school budget for buildings and grounds and keeping the buildings clean and our custodians and those different items that fall in that would be what the extra leftover would go towards to solve taking care of those expenses. Focus improvement for next year. As we listen to feedback from parents and teachers and administrators, is this year we house the middle school summer school at the high school, and feedback is that we want to look at moving our middle school summer school to the middle school level rather than housing it with the high school students. And so that is something we'll definitely be looking at for an improvement for next year. We want to be able to assess at middle school level. If our purpose is to grow students, then we need to know whether we're accomplishing that task with an assessment. And then, of course, we'll have our new NWEA assessment that will be utilized. Again, when we assess, we do not assess at the beginning unless they're a Jump Start kindergarten student. We take the assessment from where they ended in the school year. So there's no assessment at the beginning again except for Jump Start students. And then we do have to assess at the very end of the school year. At the very end of the 4-week session to see where the growth took place for our students. As I wanted to also get a comparison with other districts to see what they do for summer school. As far as measurement of growth, Webb City, Carl Junction, and Carthage, as far as local districts, they do not measure growth for summer school. Lindbergh, which is, wanted to check with them, they're the highest performing district in the state of Missouri. They do not measure for growth, and they only offer summer school for their high school students. They do not even have summer school for elementary and middle school. And then as far as Neosho, they use the NWEA assessment as their tool for growth. And Jefferson City, which is a very like size and free and reduced lunch district to us, they use the SRI, the Scholastic Reading Inventory, and then they use a teacher-made math assessment for their math. So that is an overview of summer school this summer. Overall, had very positive feedback. I think, again, the big concern that we had more than anything was middle schoolers being at the high school. So, any questions about?
Jennifer, how does that compare to previous year's growth for us? Is that average?
Yeah, it's about this.
Where we are?
It's similar to what we've seen in the past when there has been assessments. We haven't always assessed at summer school. So, but for 4 weeks to see, you have to remember it is only 4 weeks, and so to see the growth that we did in that 4-week period, I think was a positive thing, and it tells you our teachers are doing a fantastic job when they're teaching in summer school. So.
Do you have a breakdown of, like, do we have kids that were there that were trying to be pushed beyond proficient? You know, when we have the goals for the number of students, do we have a lot of kids, or are most of our kids below grade level that need to show growth in English, language arts, and math?
I would say most of our students are trying to show growth overall. I'd say about a quarter of the students, and I don't have exact data for you,
Right,
so I'm
that's
going off just, I'd have to dig in and get that for you, but I'd say about a quarter of the students probably attending in the elementary level are students who are, proficient and
Really?
and choose to attend, or their parents, have them attend, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Do we as a system push kids into summer school when they're 1 or 2 grades behind?
That
Is
we-
there a requirement by the district to do so?
There's, the only thing that the new requirement that we discussed was from the Senate bill.
Oh, I see.
Those are the ones
Okay, so
that's
there is no
mandatory to
district.
attend
Okay.
summer school. The others, it's highly recommended, and we highly encourage parents to send them.
Okay.
So.
All right.
I have a question. You
Yes.
did the NWEA assessment, or you're saying you're going to next year, but because these kids come from all over the district, does that follow them, or is that just for use in summer school? Because NWA, it takes a while to get the data back and figure it out. Does that follow the student, or I guess what I'm asking is, what's the value of doing that in summer school?
Sure. The NWEA, first of all, when the student takes the test, you get the results immediately with that. So that's the great part, is you don't have to wait. It automatically gives you the result. They'll, of course, come in with the test that they took at the end of the school year. We won't reassess when we already have an assessment. We ask that our schools, when the summer school forms are filled out, they go ahead and put that data on the summer school form. So we'll already have that. The only people you would have to assess, again, would be your incoming kindergarten students. And then sometimes we have students who attend our summer school who are not a Joplin school student, and we would need to assess them. And then the ending one, of course, so we would just actually give, as far as giving an assessment, would be at the very end. And we would just do that on those last.
But does that follow the kid? That's what I'm asking, is does that follow the kids then? So if they're
Yes.
in Joplin schools, no matter where, does that then go to their teacher that they'll have next year?
Yes.
And follow them? So
Yes.
it's valuable for, other than just summer school?
Oh, definitely,
Measuring
yes.
growth,
Yeah, it will be housed in the system underneath their name, so when a teacher, so the next school year, a teacher can look that up and see where did they end, what specific standards and skills do they need to be working on moving into the new school year, so, yes. Great question.
Okay. All right, thank you. Jason, now if you could share with us opening the school data.
Yeah, opening school data. Just some simple data as the start of the year. So first we start with student enrollment, and basically how we get this is we run, get the enrollment numbers, head count in the first 4 days of students who actually show up. And so you can see 2014-15 school year total was 7,405. And then currently this year, we're at 7,436 students. So This number is ever changing, especially at the beginning of the year, but it's a good snapshot for us to say, hey, how many student heads are walking through the building, so we have an idea of the kid count. You can see middle school and high school. Middle school is about the same. High school is a little more, and elementary is less. So if you look at that, you can see a little breakdown of numbers. Teachers, we have 585 teachers. These are faculty paid on the teacher's salary. So when I show you the counselors, librarians, learning coaches, they're actually within this 585 number. But building principals, we have 29.
That includes assistant?
Yes. Food service staff, 77. Custodial, 72. Counselors, 19. Nurses, 14. Learning coaches, 13. Librarians, 11. So just some, that's it. Just quick, simple.
So with the nurses, 14, there's 3 sites that don't have,
There's some that share.
they share, okay.
So as far as this data is concerned, this is really start of the year, but I think we're going to see a monitoring of this data as we go through the year. And I think that's going to be a critical piece as we continue to look at it. So when December 1st comes around, we'll know how many students there are per administrator and how we compare with other districts across the state. So we'll be able to do comparability. So I thought you kind of need to get a little bit of a flavor of that right now as far as what it looks like when we start the school year. And then you're going to start seeing data, and you're going to start understanding the data and how it compares, and then we can maybe make some smarter decisions as far as strategically how to approach our overall system. So, Jason, thank you on that. Now, what I'd like to do then is, if we could have a conversation around the math test. Sarah has a sick child, so she's not here tonight, so that's why she's not. But I think this is kind of an interesting approach to map data, and we're going to be doing some comparability, and, not just the state, but also other districts. And so I think it's going to tell us a lot about where we're currently at as far as map data. I want to give everybody an idea that really, in my conversations with the community so far, map data is not that critical. Okay, they do want to know how their child is doing compared to other third graders, and so map data helps with that, but it's not the final. So I think this is just part of the piece of the data we're going to be looking at as far as overall student performance. So keep that in mind as we look at it.
Hey,
All right.
Norm, before we leave and go to that, I don't think, what other employees are not on that list you just gave us? Like
Transportation?
support, transportation, central office, clerical. I would like to see all the
I
employees.
think we have that, so.
Yeah, could we have that
We'll
shared
get it
with
to
us
you.
next time?
We'll get that to you. Okay.
We're in the age of MSIP 5 now, as we're looking at assessment from the state of Missouri. And of course, we are assessed under 5 standards under MSIP 5. We are going to be talking about standard 1, 4, and 5 at this time because we do not have data at this time for standards 2 and 3. The state is looking at, it would probably be October before we'll have the rest of the data for those 2 particular standards. And as soon as, of course, we have those, we will share that out with you. So we'll be focusing on standard 1, 4, and 5 as we move into today. When we look at our district versus the state in grades 3 through 5 for English language arts, you can see that we, as compared to the state in 3rd, 4th, and 5th, are below the state average. We're close to it, and that is progress from where we had been. And then again, this is your grouping of proficient and advanced. So when you're looking at the percentage there, those are your proficient and advanced students. And then if you combine 3rd through 5th grade together, district-wide, we're at 55%, and the state at 58.3.
Okay, and here's the 6th through 12th grade. You can see, starting in 6th grade, it's a bit lower than the state average, a little more than what we'd like. And then 7th grade is right there with the state average. And then 8th grade is surpassed the state average just quite a bit. And then 6 through 8, you see the average is about a 1.6% less than the state average. And then You get to the high school, and it's quite a bit difference between the 57 and the 73%. So overall, the district was at 55.8 versus the state's 59.7.
Go back
Oh,
one.
yes, sir.
So, when you look at the district average is 55 and 57, is it so heavily weighted that when you add, is that English too? That's the secondary, that's the high school English? That it only adds 0.8% to the total number?
I would say that just
I think it's
see,
the
I would say so, because then when you look at the state does go up quite a bit because of the second degree. And really the significance of that is, I really don't think that's a significant number that we should be using, by the way. Okay, because it is different between the elementary and the secondary, so those should be two separate numbers, just keep that. Okay.
I'm just curious about the jump from the 6th grade to the 7th and 8th. Any explanation for that? And that's an interesting phenomenon,
Yeah.
and not really an expected one either.
I would say that we don't have the answers because we don't do the roots analysis. We need to do roots analysis, and I think typically what you're going to find there that the writing is lagging the reading component. And in 6th grade, that tends to be a real problem, is the writing piece. And so.
So you think those are fairly typical numbers?
No, what I'm saying is that gap is a problem for us.
Joplin specific.
Yeah, Joplin specific between 6th and 7th.
Yeah.
No question. Now, it could be because of that, so I don't think so, because we have too many students to create that, so it is a system issue. So, we're going to find a lot of gaps.
Yeah, and there's a lot of variables like how experienced is your teaching team. You know, you said an 8th grade team, are they more experienced than 6th, and some of those things that we don't have the
Well, really what you do when you drill down, you just get to particular sites. You know, and that might be.
Are 6th and 7th graders in the same schools? Are they in the same schools?
One thing I'm finding, for instance, to help explain it is, teacher clarity is not very strong in our system right now. In other words, what that means is the teacher is not real clear, so therefore the student doesn't have a real clear picture of what they need to learn. And I think that's a big struggle in our system.
Also, one of the weaknesses in adding the advanced and proficient together is if someone falls from advanced to proficient, it still is included in the number. You can't see that drop. And vice versa. If you've got somebody going from proficient to advanced, you don't capture it in here. It's the same.
So what happens a lot of times, by the way, to get back to the question that you asked, Mr. Lomber, is that school systems tend to get away from literacy and move into literature. That's a problem. We need to stay focused on the literacy. And really, it's a numeracy literacy issue as far as competence and ability to reason. And when we don't have that kind of a focus that's consistent through the system, you're going to start seeing some major gaps. That's what I'm seeing. To me, that's the problem. And so, without really looking at the data, that's my first assumption.
Are we still doing Read 180 System 44?
Yes, they are.
And did 6th grade get those services? Were there, every 6th grade that needed it got it?
They should, I mean, it is a service that is at the middle school level. Jason, do you know where we're at with servicing 6th grade?
Well, I knew at one point we just didn't have enough site license and we would pick and choose who got it, but
I'll bet you anything.
They had increased those licenses
I'll bet you
on that.
anything, we're going to be okay with that. It's the group in the middle that we're struggling with. That are not, this was 44.
Right.
That's usually the case. Anyway, we'll have more information as we go.
Some more.
Yeah, here, more drilling. It's good data though. Okay.
Okay. Here you can see comparisons between Joplin and local neighboring school districts. You see the population, free and reduced lunch count, and then our overall scores. So,
How's that trending in the last 5 years, our free and reduced lunch rate trending for Joplin?
you know, we continue to go up. State average is 50%, and so if you think about poverty and that's effect upon a student population, you can
We will get that to you.
Has Carl Junction Web City become bedroom communities for jobs? I mean, is it?
All right. There's some other school districts. Jeff City's a very comparable school district in size
Hell,
and other
in Web City
demographics.
too.
So, I'm not reading them to you. If you have questions or points to point out.
There's some key districts here that are really kind of interesting. Of course, Lindbergh's the top performing, and of course, I know them inside and out now because Nava was a neighboring district. Notice the free and reduced. It's a private school, really, if I may call it that. But no matter what, though, they have good things going as far as strategies, so we're going to learn from them, all right? So don't look at the free and reduced number necessarily. There's some stuff going on there that's really, really exciting. And they spend a lot of money to get kids caught up, and that's expensive. I think they're right at about 12,000 a student. So, anyway, just things. So what we may want to do is come back to you then, like by December 1st, show how much each district is spending per student, all right? And also student-teacher ratios. Also, what we need to show you is student-teacher minutes. In other words, how much time they're spending together. All of that is going to be able to show us the major impact, okay, and results. And so we'll have that for you by December 1st, all right? So this is kind of a good flavor, but we'll be able to do that with each of those districts. Now, if there's a district up there that you don't like, we'll throw it out. In other words, if you don't like Independence because there's somebody in there that you don't like, just let us know. But now, there might be a district that you want to compare with. Let us know. But we can't go into Oklahoma. We can't go into Kansas, okay? So if there's anybody else that you think you would like to throw up there, we will put that up there.
A question, you said Lindbergh has 12,000 students?
No. Lindbergh has about the same size as us.
Okay, that was.
Yeah, they're about the same
So
size.
the tested population was comparable.
Right.
That was,
They spent 12,000 per student.
I see.
On
12,000
yeah,
per student.
It's a little high.
You know, Ladue spends 20,000 a student, so, you know, there's quite a difference. Anyway.
So strategies that we know we need to improve upon are to focus on literacy K through 3 to ensure students are on track. We want to make sure that they're reading on grade level by the time they hit 3rd grade, that as well as writing effectively. And so that's very important, that we know there's a correlation with 3rd grade and graduation and then also being successful academically. And so we want to make sure we're focusing on that. We want to continue to collect evidence and support our teachers on closing the gaps between literacy and the knowledge students need in order to succeed in their high school literature classes, as you observed in the differences with English 2 versus the other English language arts assessment. And then we want to continue the goal of all teachers and students knowing their learning intentions and the steps to be successful for grade level. That Dr. Ritter just was pointing that out just a moment ago with you. And then, of course, we want to collect feedback and listen to all stakeholders on how we can improve and get their feedback.
So Jennifer, what teacher professional development then are we going to do that would help us in the literacy area?
It's a very good question, Debbie. That's something we're working on right now, is looking at PD as we've had to kind of we had a certain path for that and looking at that, and after feedback, that's what we're looking at. And if we could report out to you next month on that, would that be okay?
Well, my response to that is we need to talk to teachers to find out what they need.
Yes.
And so after we talk to the teachers, I think you're going to be surprised. And really, it's all about being consistent as a system and being and make sure we don't overwhelm the system and allow time for them to have conversation around that. And so I think to have one focus around clarity is going to be a big, big thing for them. And so I think that's really the development, is to do less. So, and to do more listening and to really fine-tune our system. So as we fine-tune the system, you're going to find that the energy and the resources are going to make sense, and the alignment's going to fall into place. Then we could start getting smarter.
We used to do Ruby Payne, and
Oh,
we
yeah.
did we did the theory part of Ruby Payne, and then we were getting into the practical application part, but I don't know if we really ever delved into that. Are we still doing Ruby Payne strategies for working with kids in poverty, or not?
I think some of our higher poverties, our schools that have the higher poverty, they look at that a little bit more as far as bringing that back to the forefront. I would say it's not something that we've expended a lot of time and energy on in a while.
I'll be looking for it because Ruby and I, anyway, she's coming here, by the way. Did you know that?
Ruby.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I'll be visiting.
I love that.
I love her and her
She does. She's
practical
an
application makes a
interesting
difference.
lady. All right, so, any other, let's go.
Okay, sorry. We were moving into math, district versus state. As you can see, math is where we showed growth as far as proficient advanced categories, and from the standards last year to the previous 2 years, we did show growth in math. That is an area that we definitely need to grow in. You can see where that is definitely a struggle at this time.
All right. For the secondary, you can see sixth again, a little lower, seventh lower, and then you do see an eighth actually surpasses the state, so that's a good sign. And then 6 through 8, you see the percentage, and then algebra 1, you see another kind of a spread similar to the ELA at the secondary level. So there's some shining points with the grade levels that did exceed the state, and we actually had 7.6% more proficient and advanced students this year than last year. You're not supposed to compare last year's and this year's, so.
Different tests.
But these standards are supposed to be more challenging. In comparison with local districts. And strategies to improve focus on numeracy to ensure students are on track with mathematical concepts and practices by the end of the 5th and 8th grade. And then, of course, curriculum work to focus on alignment and rigor. And then continuing to, with the goal of all teachers and students knowing learning intentions and steps to be successful for their grade level. And then collecting feedback and listening to all stakeholders and how we can improve.
Usually the issue around math is basically the adult in the system not really being comfortable with math. And so when the adult in the system isn't comfortable with math, then all of a sudden it's a work, it's a task. I don't like to do this, but kids, we're going to do it type of attitude, and it just doesn't work. And so really when you build the numeracy and you build the engagement, you build the excitement around it, really, to be honest with you, the countries that are doing very, very well, 6th graders are taking algebra, all right? And it's mainly because they love, Singapore loves math. They hate to read, but they love math. And that's why Singapore math is so successful. So anyway, it's basically something that we're going to have to watch and take care of. But to me, the data is very obvious is what the real issue is here. So.
I think if we looked within our data, though, you'd see pockets of teachers that are really strong in math.
Oh, they love it.
And
I had
love
one
it,
today.
and we can learn from those teachers.
And you walk in that
Yeah.
room, it was all math. I said, do you teach reading in here? Yeah, 2 math. So anyway, okay.
And yes, you are correct on that. There are definitely that.
I can think of a few.
Okay. When you look at science, again, it's an area that did not see the growth that we would hope to have seen. Our biology, however, was at least within some distance of the state. But definitely an area that's something where curricular work is definitely, we know, needs to be continued and completed.
Are we still doing science kits or not?
They have those as a resource, but they're not something, what we found is if you look at since science kits and you look at our scores, since having them, they've gradually gone, we've seen a decline in scores rather
So
than
we're
an
back to a
increase.
science
And so
textbook?
they're using a variety of, between textbook, kit, bringing in their, do you know what I'm saying? Bringing in their own sources until we can get the
So there's
curriculum
not
set.
really
And we'll be
okay.
moving more towards STEM-related activities, which is what we're hearing from other districts who've seen success in their science scores, there are definitely very STEM-related activities that they're using, and so that's where we'll be focusing on. And teachers will have a huge say in that particular, the decision-making for that, so. Again, if you look at science compared to the local districts, you get an idea of how we fared versus those districts. And then versus the outlying districts in the state of Missouri.
Brad, when you were at College Junction, were they really good in science?
They were very good. I was not.
I just wanted to find out. Brad is from MSSU, and I think he's been assigned here just to kind of live through this meeting. So, welcome.
It's always fun to throw up a score that's above state average right off the
Yes.
bat. So thank you, Social Studies, for allowing us to do that. And let's see. Here's how we compare to other school districts neighboring.
What grade level is this?
This is the government test, and I believe it is.
So high school?
It's
Yeah.
junior-
I was
junior.
gonna say it's
It
11th
used to be
grade.
senior, but maybe it's
Junior,
junior.
senior. Yeah.
We actually had one teacher who's, every student in their class scored 100%, or scored proficient or advanced.
K,
Hmm?
that Coach K.
Which teacher was that?
It was Tobin Schultz.
That did what, I'm sorry?
All the students
Tobin
scored
Schultz
proficient and
class.
advanced.
Scored all above or proficient or advanced, 100%.
Lincoln next week.
That's kind of cool.
Seeing, again, comparison with other school districts.
So this is just based on one class then?
Yeah, with the government it is, it's based upon, you have to, it's a mandatory test, but every student in the state has to go through a government class, so it's usually.
It's not one classroom,
So
though.
it's
Your question was it one classroom?
one course, no,
One
just
course.
one course, yeah. Yeah.
And similar strategies, working on curriculum, alignment, rigor, listening to feedback, and focusing on teacher clarity. And then finally, attendance and graduation rate. Attendance was 89. This is off of the 90-90 ratio. That's not, they usually, used to, they do the, where you have your average daily percentage. So this is off of 90-90 though. And then graduation for the 6-year rate was 88.6, which is celebration.
Very good.
So just to make you aware too, APR reports will be out in October. We'll know where we fared as a district overall with the state with those reports in October. The rest of the reports will come out for the other standards as well as breaking down so we can actually dig deeper into the data. Right now, we don't have all of the, what standard this covered, how did our students do with that, and so we'll have all reports hopefully in October is what we're being told. Parent reports will be going home in the next couple of weeks. And then the student map and EOC's scale scores will be loaded into the parent portal for viewing as well. Those should be finished by the end of this week, actually, and should be up and ready to see on the parent portal next week. So, any other questions?
Okay, thank you. That was our first dose of data. And of course, we have a lot of work to do as far as data is concerned, help the board get smarter. Sorry about saying it that way, but it's true. All right, so the agenda is yours.
Brings us to the consent agenda. We have pulled off item 7. And if there are any, I'd entertain a motion to.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Second.
Moved by Ron and seconded by Gary. Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay. That's the consent agenda. So first item up on the regular agenda, renewal of employee health plan reinsurance.
Yes, thank you, President Koch. We bring this reinsurance item to the board this evening, as we do every year. Reinsurance is our self-funded plan is partially self-funded. It's primarily self-funded, but at the top level of very expensive individual claims, and in terms of a group, if we have claims exceeding a high dollar number, $6 or $7 million, we buy reinsurance to cover that topside risk for individuals and our group as a whole. I'm going to read the item here and ask Sherry McCoy with Healthcare Solution Group if she would join us at the table, please. Healthcare Solution Group is our third-party administrator we've been working with since the spring on looking at our claims, developing our numbers. We had their representative here, Sophia Hurley, a couple weeks ago to speak with the board. Sherry McCoy is Vice President Administration, and she's going to be able to handle some of the technical questions this evening from the board on reinsurance, and also on the next item on the health and dental plan in terms of adopting rates. This item, Healthcare Solution Groups, they go out like our third-party administrator does every year and obtain quotes from reinsurance carriers. The current carrier is Companion Life at a fixed cost of $380, almost $88,000. Item number 3 there, under pertinent fact, I received some information today as the carriers received an update from MedTrack, our prescription drug company plan, gave the carriers some current numbers on our drug usage. These reinsurance carriers, to give us quotes, even though it's late August, for coverage beginning October 1, to take them through September 30 of 16, they want to get right up to the water's edge, so to speak, of when their clock's going to start ticking for their coverage. And they ask for current claims information, prescription drug information, to make their bids as meaningful as possible so they get their numbers right. You see the footnotes there at the bottom of the page as to they reserve the right to freshen up their exposures with the numbers we give them. This third item is updated, as I'll read, and I'll furnish this to Pat Waldo, Secretary, after the meeting, but that first statement is true. We have a $200,000 deductible for every individual in the plan. If we have an expensive claim of $500,000, we pay the first $200,000. This type of insurance would pay the next $300,000. The renewal quote from Companion that we received today with some freshened up prescription numbers, they do have one, they call technical terms lasered. To us, that means they're going to exclude one person up to $250,000 in their quote. The American National refreshed quote, they're going to exclude 2 people at a total of $600,000, and possibly 2 more at a total of $700,000, conditioned on a certain health event happening or not happening. And the last reference there, Everest, has 1 individual they're going to exclude up to $425,000. So I know that's hard to follow by me just reading a couple of changes, but the summary of that paragraph 3 would read, with today's information, that the best quote relative to how much they're going to exclude and put exposure and dollars onto us possibly, the best of that paragraph is Companion Life. 1 excluded life at $250,000 versus potentially $1.3 million or $425,000 for the other 2. Moving down the page, Healthcare Solution Group has collected and reviewed all bids. The current incumbent carrier is A+ rated, superior by AM Best, which is Companion. We see the attachment points from prior years that these reinsurance carriers have calculated their reinsurance quotes based on these attachment points. That is basically the total exposure of claims to the plan. And we did look with Sherry and the group. We talked about there's a small cost for the aggregate coverage. You see there it's quoted at $11,162. I mean, relatively small. And we were wondering if that's worth saving that, not having that coverage or not. But given that our health plan is already financially struggling, and that seems like a reasonably affordable premium, our recommendation builds that coverage in this recommendation as to have the aggregate coverage in the event our group gets sick by, say, $7 or $8 million this year. That premium there would cover above the attachment points for this recommendation that we're bringing tonight. So we would recommend that aggregate coverage.
And is that where you got the negative 9.8, is that less than last year, or what's that on the chart?
The negative 9.8 is where?
It's on the chart where it talks about the annual aggregate premium percent increase. I don't know if that's a comparison from last year. Is that right? I'm on the chart on page 3, where you've got the aggregate premium. So was that less than last year?
Yeah, the others was 12,000.
Those are 12,378 compared to this 11,000.
Oh, in comparison with the others?
That's the present plan, the premium, yeah, that's less than this current year, yes.
Okay.
By $1,100, yes.
Okay.
And this item 6 is it's a little bit technical, but the 1212 reference in reinsurance, and Sherry, correct me if I'm misstating here, but it means for 12 months of coverage, in your plan, we're going to cover claims that are incurred, not only are incurred in the 12 months of your plan, but they're also paid by your third-party administrator in 12 months. And a Healthcare Solutions Group is recommending we go to incurred in 12 months, meaning 10/1 to 9/30, but paid out over 15 months to give us, because it's not really realistic to think that someone who has a claim end of August or middle September, they may not even be out of the hospital for 2 or 3 weeks. They're certainly not going to be billed and paid to be covered by this coverage. Is that right, Sherry?
That's correct.
So you're recommending, most of your clients do have a 12-15.
12-15
to give them
contract.
3 more months to pay a end of year claim to get it in on this year's insurance policy. So that seems to be, it does cost more. Anytime you buy more coverage, you pay more. But it seems to be, it seems to us to have cover those late year claims, whereby otherwise you're not covered for those that don't get billed until October and maybe November, that happened in September and August. So that's why we're recommending that, and then the lower column there in fiscal note. You see the bids received there by Companion, American, and Everest, and the aggregate attachment point in Companion's favor is they would pay a large claim by our group as a total after $6,070,000. They would start their coverage for the group coverage, the aggregate coverage, which is almost $300,000 less than American and $1.12 million less than Everest. So Companion on a large group claim would pay quite a bit earlier. Their premium that we're recommending accepting is the 12-15 premium of $462,000 compared to the other 2 premiums. But keep in mind that pertinent fact 3 up above I read, none of these items on this page change with those updated exclusions I read about in number 3. They're just all 3 saying, we're not going to cover 1, 6, or 1 of your lives up to this level. That exposure is on us. Their quotes are good for what they're going to cover, but they're not going to cover those, what they deem to be very sick individuals. They don't want the risk. They're giving that back to us. So that number 3 item up there that I kind of overread over what you're seeing, if you want to go back and review that, we can, but the lowest exposure we have on that item 3 is from Companion versus American National and Everest. So we are recommending the administration that the board accept the proposal from Companion Life effective, that's actually printed wrong, it's effective 10/1/15 for an annual premium of $462,858, subject to actual enrollment, because it's on a per enrollment basis.
Paul, will you explain to me again why we're not doing American National that's $40,000 cheaper? It's got
Because
something to do with who they're not going to cover?
Right, it's everything to do with that. The other quote we say is the best quote, Companion Life is going to exclude 1 individual up to $250,000. Of course, we exclude up to $200,000 because we know we have a deductible on everybody. So that Companion quote is giving us $50,000 more than we already are agreeing to cover through a deductible. The American National quote is giving us a potentially $1.3 million more from 4 individuals. 4 deductibles is $800,000, so they're giving us a $500,000 more of exposure. American National versus Companion Life's giving us $50,000 more of exposure. We're saying with healthcare, Sherry's analysis and our agreement that we think it's worth the additional $40,000 down below not to take on an additional $450,000 more of exposure from people they already know are sick through the drug usage that they're doing. And they're not even a guess. They're very sick today, known by the companies. So that would be why we normally would not recommend a higher premium, apples to apples to apples, but you see the differences along the way, and the companies have every right to say who they're going to cover and who they're not going to cover.
Has there been a plan year where we've hit our aggregate attachment?
One since I've been here in 21 years. I don't know, Sherry, is it pretty unusual for a group to file an aggregate claim?
It is. It is unusual because the carriers get those funding levels, the attachment point up. They don't want you to have an aggregate claim. But it does give you, especially in a type of plan that you are, a municipality, a public entity, you don't have the corporate funds to go pull from when you need it, per se, but it does give you a cap on your exposure. So you do know that your liability is capped.
Can I ask Paul, the premium, the annual renewal premium, the 11,000, is that part of the increase you're proposing to employ, does that figure into the employee's premium that we're going to talk about later?
Yeah, that does, and this entire $462,000 premium that we're recommending is part of the overall plan cost that's rolled into plan rates. So is the fee we pay healthcare solution groups. So really, that's the only two out-of-pocket costs we have is the fee that was bid last fall. The healthcare solution group won that bid straight up, and they've been providing us excellent service. The other bid for our plan is reinsurance. I'm trying to think, I believe that's all the costs we have. We have no profit, we have no overhead, which is an advantage to a self-funded plan. So yes, those costs are all rolled in the premium costs that we'll be presenting next.
And this is an increase from last year? Is that right?
The
Or it's a
item
new-
number 2 lists last year's cost of $387,721. Yes, this is an increase over last year, yes.
And is it a change in the
20%.
coverage? Or it's the same coverage?
No, it's the same coverage. It happens to be the same company, but same coverage, same, different limits, different attachment point, but it's
Right,
covering-
it's the same stop-loss contract, other than if you should elect to accept the recommendation of the 1215 contract, it is a little bit more expensive than what you had before, being the 1212 contract, but it does give you extra protection. You're just buying more insurance to protect you against those claims that may incur towards the end of the plan year that doesn't get paid by the end of the plan year. So you're buying more protection, so it's going to cost a little more.
Historically, we've tried to, where we knew we had claims and maybe serious claims, we typically, patients have to get certified for inpatient stays, correct, Sherry?
Yes.
So our third-party administrator will know if any of us check in the hospital for inpatient activity, which are your large dollar activities. They're going to know it, say someone checked in September 10th, and they probably have already given benefits discussion with the hospital. They probably know what's happened or is going to happen. And historically, we've tried to have our TPA ask that hospital and that doctor and that anesthesia service and everybody involved to please bill us by, within 10 days or 2 weeks, kind of expedite your billing system so we can get it in and get it paid. And that's worked to some helpful degree, but you take those late claims in the last half of September and patient may still be on their back waiting surgery. So the event started in September and not going to be even billed until after October. Those are lost in this coverage unless you buy more time to pay the claim. So we've milked the system as best we could with our TPA, calling the services and asking for expedited billing so you know about it, but it still leaves you exposed to your end-of-year claims, don't get billed and don't get paid until October, November. You're on your own on those.
So Paul, I just want to make sure I understand this. I have surgery September 23rd.
Okay.
and the bills don't get submitted to Sherry, who submits them to Companion, until October 15th. Companion doesn't pay those?
That's right. The current contract
Because
you're
they're
in.
not turned in by September
Right.
30th.
It's incurred in 12 and paid in that same 12. So any claim that was incurred in that 12 months of that plan year, if it doesn't get filed and paid by September 30th of that plan year, then you lose your protection for the $200,000.
So we,
But isn't that claim then paid in the next plan year?
It is, but it's not covered by your stop-loss policy.
The employee's covered, of course, but not, the plan's not collecting from the reinsurance carrier that it otherwise would, because it happened late in the year. I mean, you think about how random health events are, they don't know a clock or a month, they just happen.
so that's going to cost us an additional $68,000. Have we typically lost $68,000?
Well,
If I'm reading right, the 1212 premium's $398 and the 1215 premium's $466. So typically, has it cost us $48,000?
it's
I mean,
cost,
$68,000?
I don't have the numbers for that. Sherry, would you want to comment on that?
Well, you know, this is our first year with your risk, so I don't know your history. And I would say, you know, it doesn't come into play real often, but like I said, it's buying more protection. It's buying more insurance in the event it does happen. It's just a roll of the dice.
We may have, you know, we may have data that says we haven't needed it, or maybe some years we have, but you gotta be a little bit careful, even if we had the data looking backward. Let's take what we know. Of these 3 companies that are quoting, one company has found 4 individuals that could run up over 1.3 million right now today with what they know the drugs they're taking and their conditions.
That's in last-minute claims, or that's in their claims for the whole
That's people's
year?
health today that they're judging on right now that they're not going to cover.
Based on last year's findings?
No, based on,
Current year.
Current year's claims.
Current year.
Oh,
Yeah, in other words,
Yeah.
claims up through today.
Now, I'm
What
not
they-
saying to go to a different company, I'm just trying to figure out whether we should go for the
No,
1215.
but what I'm saying is, one of the companies bidding has found 4 individuals that are too
Right.
expensive for them to cover.
Right.
So, again, I think that's a great question. I wish I had 10-year look-back data. I do not have that, but it's really, we've got to be perspective on what we're wanting to cover in the future. I do think over the long haul to cover, just the logic of having late-year claims that are random throughout the year, I think over time, we could run a test starting this year, run a test for 5 years and see if it pays, but it seemed like to us, and with the majority of Healthcare Solutions Group's clients, I believe, so what percent of your clients would have a 1215 plan?
Oh, probably 80% of our book has a 1215. We don't sell anything but a 1215 unless the group is just, you know, insistent on it because of the premium differential. But we always recommend at least a 1215.
So for the last 20 years that we've been self-insured, self-funded, we've done a 12-12.
We've done 12-12.
And now we're saying we should change because our TPA, no offense,
That's okay.
is accustomed to that and they see that benefit. It's our choice if we want to move or
It's
not.
a board choice.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and it looks like the difference in premiums from last year to this coming year would be $11,000 if we stayed with the same plan, which would mean we would have to make up $11,000 worth of premiums, which is a smaller amount than making up $75,000 worth of premiums by switching it to a 1215. But again, it's you don't know what's going to happen at the end of the year.
And out of that 75,000 difference, the districts absorbs 81.5% and the employees absorb 18.5?
Right.
Yes.
So how much more money are we taking out of the employees' paychecks?
I don't have that answer for you. The split you say is correct, and I think the appropriate number to gear off of the numbers in front of us is the current bids. I mean, I know 387 was last year's number, but no one's bidding 387. I mean, I understand that's an increase, but the real difference to look at is 397 versus $462.
Right.
I'd look at $65,000 difference. Do you want to have 3 more months of coverage or not? It is a question and a choice we can make here.
And if you've got one of these critically ill people who go to a facility, a hospital that we may have a relationship with locally, and ask them to bill us quickly, that might be one scenario. But on the other hand, if you've got a patient that's going to MD Anderson will bill you whenever MD Anderson decides they want to bill you. And you won't have that rapid recovery. And 3 or 4 days at MD Anderson, 60,000.
Well, and if you had an individual that's in the hospital and it overlaps, like they go in the hospital September 20th, and they continue to be in the hospital over into the month of October, only the portion incurred in that 12 months and paid, I mean, we would have to be asking the hospital to split the billing and go ahead and bill us for these many days so we can get that processed, but they still may be in the hospital. You know, if you have a preemie baby, the middle of September, you have a car accident, I mean, those types of claims, there's a lot that goes into larger claims, medical bill reviews, requesting itemized bills, and those sorts of things that kind of delay the larger claim anyway. Because of all the scrutiny of the plan, then, you know, it's just, it gives you more protection.
Now, does the 12, obviously the 12-12 premium plan starts October 1st and ends September 30th. The 12-15 plan starts October 1st, ends January 31st.
The
Right.
incurred
Or-
year is 12 months in September 30, but we have 3 more months to pay, is September 25th to September 21st.
For that first, and so I guess that's what I'm asking is when did your 12 month starts at the same time, it's just that 15 is just an extension.
Last
So
fiscal
anything
year.
incurred it has to have been incurred before September 30th to fall in that 3-month
So you
extension.
can't have a
It gives you a
hospital
3
stay in
month grace
October, be
period,
paid
right,
in
essentially
there.
what we're
The
talking
real
about.
problem we have here is that our employees really haven't had a voice in this conversation. And so really, we don't have what they would want. And so that's the real problem, because we're trying to make decisions
Right.
based on our own lives. And if my wife was to make a decision on this based on my health, she'd go 12-15, big time. And so, you know, it depends on where it's at. And so I really think that's what's missing here. So we're going to have to depend on our expert. But in the future, we're going to have to make sure that we have the employee voice at the table so that we could say the employees are recommending that we do this.
Absolutely.
Then all of a sudden, there's no argument. And so to me, that's the takeaway, Paul.
Agreed.
Is that we need to have the employee group,
Yep.
employees need to be represented so that they're part of this conversation, so the board doesn't have to have this conversation. It's pretty much done, because it's their health group, health benefits, so that's my takeaway. So anyway.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt the recommendation.
Second.
Motion and a second discussion. We've done discussion. Any further discussion? Okay. There's a motion to adopt by Ron, and a second by Sally, to accept the recommendation prepared by Mr. Barr. Please vote.
Can I just
yes or
make a
no?
comment
No.
first of all? No? Okay, all I was going to say was I agree with Norm. Next time I'd like to have the employee input, but I guess I'll vote yes.
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 No.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So the motion's passed to accept that recommendation.
And we will,
Thank you.
as we said last meeting, we will be meeting with employees later this fall, early winter, ahead of the budget cycle to update them on the plan as it stands and on next year's budgeting cycle. So Tina's going to be helping pull that group together. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul.
We have the next item is the employee health and dental plan item, whereby we are going to recommend rate adoption. And again, we included the graphs we had at the last meeting, but where our recommendation includes plan design changes of the single deductible of $950, previously $900, and a single out-of-pocket maximum of $1,270, previously $1,200. All related deductibles and out-of-pocket limits will change to correspond. These limits were raised to minimize the planned premium increase. We're trying to keep the increase as low as possible. The plan maintains its Affordable Care Act, that's ACA, Affordable Care Act grandfathered status for now. which I believe, Sherry, when we were reviewing this, didn't we say that will save the plan by maintaining that grandfathered status, approximately $212,000?
Yes, that's correct.
So that's our incentive to try to draw the line there. We know eventually we're going to lose that status because, over time, costs go up on a plan, and Affordable Care Act was designed so plans would have that grandfather for a while, but over time, the entire country will grow out of it and lose grandfather, correct?
Yes.
Based on Healthcare Solution Group's recommendation, we have rates attached for this coming year that begins October 1, fiscal note B. Full-time employees that voluntarily remain in the plan will fund their single coverage at $93.75 per month, which equals 18.75% of the total. Joplin schools will pay the balance, which is 81.25% of the total, over $406. And by the way, that percentage split has been the same as last year. We could maintain the Affordable Care Act grandfather status, and actually the charge could increase an employee up to, did you say 23%? But we're recommending we hold the line on the split, and we both sides endure the increase together at the same rate as last year. We're not recommending lowering ours to 80% and raising theirs to 20 or something like that. So that part's not our recommendation. Anyway, you see footnote 5 there where we're including some plan design changes, HIPAA recommendation, election, and we list the deductibles, out-of-pocket limits on page 6 and 7. The dental plan appears to be adequately funded, so we're not recommending any changes there for that small dental plan we have for employees only. And we did include the graphs that we showed the board at the last meeting and distributed last week. We are encouraging, I think, through Human Resources is promoting as they do every year when we have signups for healthcare open enrollment, don't you promote the flexible spending plan, Tina? So our staff, as they pay these premiums, more expensive premiums, that they can tax shelter their premiums, not pay federal income tax, state income tax, I believe Social Security and Medicare exempt, aren't they also? So promoting a savings, at least, when you have to pay large premiums, you can at least avoid paying taxes if you choose. So
Do you have any percentage of utilization of that?
it's pretty high. Is it?
We'd like to see it be higher, and it's an education piece for our employees, and we're going to work on that a little more, but I don't have the exact percentage.
Are you speaking of the optional flexible benefit plan? But this,
Well,
everybody's premiums run through this.
Premiums go through, but there's an
Right.
additional
But
that they
the other-
can.
Right. So 100% of our people are having their health premium tax sheltered.
Right.
So the numbers are listed there. I won't read all those. They're pretty self-evident. The single premium, which is the cornerstone premium that all other rates dovetail from, is recommended to be $500. For COBRA, terminated employees, we can charge 2% more. We're recommending that. The employer-paid share will cost approximately $784,875 this year, and we'll need to adjust the budget because last month when we adopted the raise package, I had an estimate of $374,500 of the employer share to be paid by the company budget. But we'll have to adjust the budget by another $410,000 to hit this 784 number. So that's a challenge on us as we bring budget adjustments later this fall. The administration recommends the board adopt the health plan changes, insurance premiums, plan design changes, and annual health plan election to be exempt from the one section of the HIPAA as attached for the plan year beginning October 1, 2015.
Well, that's the page I want to ask about, page 4.
We really should have a motion before we have discussion.
Right. Need a motion.
So a motion and a second. So does somebody want to make a motion, and then we can have discussion before we take any votes?
I'll move the recommendation on page 3.
Second.
Okay. So Sally has moved and Gary has seconded. Now discussion.
Okay, will you explain page 4 to me? HIPAA exemption, election renewal document number 1, parity in the application of certain limits to mental health benefits. What does that mean?
That's, I'm going to refer to Sherry on that, but it's basically, it's an election we've had every year that it helps us to maintain costs in the plan. But Sherry, I'm going to stop there and let you jump in.
Because you're a non-ERISA plan, they allow you to opt out of certain provisions.
We're non-what?
A non-ERISA plan,
What's
a
ERISA?
self-funded plan.
Okay.
Municipalities, public entities are not considered ERISA plans, so you don't have the protection of ERISA like a corporation would.
Okay.
But it does allow you to do certain things, and one is to opt out of certain provisions. The government has taken several of those away over the years, but you are still allowed to opt out of mental health parity, which mental health parity requires you to cover mental health services at the same level as any other illness. So by opting out of that, you're allowed to place limits, day limits on your mental health benefits, maybe not cover them at the same level. And, most of our municipalities do elect to do the opt-outs.
And so what are the limits that we're placing on mental health services that our employees can get? I think that's pretty important.
We're not changing them. Let me see exactly. I don't want to misquote.
We have is it a dollar amount per visit and a number of visits per year?
You actually just have number of visit limits.
Number of visits.
On inpatient, you limit it to 15 days per plan year inpatient and 50 visits per year outpatient.
Okay.
And if you didn't opt out, you wouldn't be allowed to have those limits.
Okay.
Well, that saves me.
What you could do in those 2 weeks of the year that you're not going?
Yeah, that's true.
Paul, at the last meeting, Gary had asked if you broke out the prescription, broke the plan apart to see what the cost was for those when we were talking about looking to see if there was anywhere we could save if we cut prescription coverage out of that and save money there or somewhere. Have you done that, or do you have those numbers?
I was committing to doing that when we get the larger employer group together, not for this effort. There was not enough time to plug that into our numbers, but we can certainly do that when we convene the effort this fall and bring numbers for the next budget cycle. I think it was a great question to see if there's, I believe it was to look at different types of illness and injuries and see what kind of costs are bringing our plan and see if we can manage those more effectively.
Well, it's specifically pharmaceuticals.
Pharmaceuticals. I'm going to have Sherry acts as a compliance officer for healthcare solution groups and all their plans. And, where we could do that 10 years ago, perhaps, without Affordable Care Act. Sherry, I'd like you just to give a snippet comment on, with the Affordable Care Act, how much latitude we have if we found some areas that we were heavy in claims and this, how Affordable Care Act has placed limits on plans today to manage those costs.
In order to retain grandfather status?
Well,
You mean?
yes, as we're trying to maintain grandfather,
Right.
to save $200,000+.
Right. When we started looking at your plan and working with Paul and Tina to help control some of the costs that you've had this current plan year, we looked at, you look at deductibles and out-of-pockets, and really all that does is cost shift it to the employee, but that's about all you can do with the cost of healthcare rising the way it is and hospitals charging what they do. But in looking at that, in order to retain grandfather status, the government, the Affordable Care Act, only allows you to do certain things. If you exceed a certain threshold, then you're going to lose grandfather status. So like in looking at your deductibles and your out-of-pockets, we were limited as to what we could do with those. And that limit is 15% plus the CPI index, so for the last 12 months. So and there's a formula that you use to determine what that percentage is. For the last 12 months, we could go 27% differential between your deductible and out-of-pockets last year to what we could do to them this year. However, that's measured against your plan as it was on March 23rd of 2010, which was the date of enactment of the Affordable Care Act. That's your threshold plan. So everything you do from March 23rd, 2010 counts against those thresholds that you can change the provisions in your plan. So you're allowed 27%. When I got back to looking at what you had, the changes you had made previously back to March of 2010, you only had 7% remaining of that 27% that we could use. So all of these proposed plan changes that you're seeing get you right to the limit of what you can do in your plan in order to retain grandfather status. We did have some RX, some pharmaceutical copay changes in there, and again, those were to the max, the limit that you could do in order to retain grandfather status. And I think those generated around $80,000 of savings in prescription drugs, estimate. So basically, they tell you how much you can tweak those provisions in your plan, and if you exceed that, then you'll lose grandfather status. So.
One example I asked Sherry about today, we talked about several months ago, and we have a copay on specialty drugs, which the name of it tells you it's $10,000 and more for very sick individuals, and we're glad we offer that. We pay, or the individual pays 30% now, is that right? That 30%
Right.
number is
Yes,
copay.
30%
for the
copay.
member. And I was asking, I didn't know what the numbers were, but I said, could we raise that? And that happens to be a coverage that, because it's a percent copay coverage, Affordable Care Act locks you out from increasing
Yeah, you
that.
can't make any change to
I
a
mean, it's that
percent.
sort of thing. If we were to find diabetes or heart transplants or other areas that we, maybe 10 years ago might think about right-sizing or shifting, Affordable Care Act locks you out of some of those options today.
Well, and the ADA does too. I mean, you can't very well structure your benefit plan around a diagnosis or, have different benefits based on diagnosis.
Sherry, I think what the intent here is, we have a lot of local school districts that employ the same type of employees that have different benefit structures. Example, Webb City has higher teacher pay, no prescription coverage.
Oh,
So people see the higher teacher pay and say, that's great.
right.
They have no prescription coverage, and that's where it's going. And Dr. Ritter, we're working on some type of way to make that comparison. But in order to be more competitive with our market, we're trying to see other things that we can do to become more competitive. Not to have less benefits, but to be able to shift it
Right.
into a lower premium for our employees so that they can see that benefit in their pocket versus in something they might not use.
Right. I understand.
Jared, how does our package compare to other nonprofits that you represent? Our total package?
As far as premiums go,
Yes.
I
mean total package, in other words, district costs as well as premium.
the benefits, I think it's pretty average for the industry.
Yeah, to me, it's,
I don't,
Of course, I'm thinking St. Louis, but St. Louis is much higher. But I'm just wondering how it compared around here.
Are the benefits that we offer in the middle of the pack? The benefits of the member are similar to the benefits your other customers offer?
they are. I mean, we're seeing deductibles, $1,500 deductibles is pretty standard in the industry today. Out-of-pockets are getting up around $6,000, $5,000, $6,000. So,
Yeah.
When you say industry, is that school districts or that's businesses?
it's the industry as a whole, not just school districts. I haven't really studied just school districts to do that comparison, but I'm, looking at our block and the industry standard. If you go to the exchange, you can't hardly find a deductible under $5,000 unless you want to pay an outrageous amount for it. I mean, people has had to raise their deductibles and their out-of-pockets because of the cost of health care.
And when they're not grandfathered, they can do that.
You can do that. You do have a limit on what your out-of-pocket maximum can be. They do place that limit on you, so you can only go so far, and it's all in. everything, co-pays, deductible, everything counts toward that out-of-pocket maximum, and it is limited if you lose your grandfather status.
One of the benefits that we did bring that we enriched to the plan was Tina, we're going from 80% wellness coverage to 90% with this.
Right.
And we're covering children for immunizations. Instead of cutting off at age 5, we're cutting off at age 6.
Right, through age 5.
Through age 5 all the way, so we picked up a year there. So, those aren't huge benefits, but we're trying to, as we all absorb, and the company absorbs this huge increase that we're all paying, trying to, enrich the plan where we can afford to in a few places.
Okay, any more discussion? I know Tina had provided a health care comparison, which is good, but by itself doesn't tell you the story. You have to put the pay package with it together, and then I think we'll start to let our employees see that it's a choice. We got so much money to spend, we can spend it in salary, or we can spend it in health insurance, or we can spend it in benefits, but it's not limitless, but that's a good piece that'll go towards the data we're putting together for later on in the year.
Right.
So
what do we tell employees who say their paycheck is less because they didn't get a raise? They didn't fall into the group that even got a pay increase?
Well, my response, that's what Jeff was trying to tell you. We're going to look at the whole package, and they're going to see there is an increase in their total package. Just that there's going to be probably less in pay because there's more into the benefits. But also, if they're going up the salary schedule, there's going to get more too. And maybe it was the taxes that pulled it down. But they're going to see the whole package. That's what I meant by they have to see the total cost of the teacher to the system. And we're going to give you an example of that. We're already putting that together.
I brought an example with me.
Oh, you have it?
I have it, if you'd like to look at it. But basically, it compares FY15 to FY16. I took 4 representative positions, basically a teacher at a master's level, a teacher at a bachelor's, step 11, because they don't move unless they get graduate hours. So that would be a position that didn't see an increase in FY16. A food service manager, and a classified director. So basically, when you look at, although they may not see a net increase in their paycheck, there's an increase overall to their total compensation because of the benefits that the district provides. So now I will say that.
Don't hand that out, Chip, because we need to test that.
I'm just going to look at it. We can do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I need to look at that before you get it.
Okay. I was just going to show them the way that we can communicate that to employees.
Oh, okay, that you can do, sure.
Okay. But I won't pass it out.
Oh, okay. Oh, I was glad to see it. That's what we need to do.
So I think one of the things that we haven't done a good job of is communicating, exactly what their benefits are and how that adds to their compensation. But if we were to create a document like this that basically says, here's your salary, here's the cost of benefits to the district, and it basically outlines it all so they can see total what their compensation package is, and I think it makes more sense when we can communicate it that way.
And we need to do that for every single staff member. It really brings a lot of power to their decision-making, and then they come to the benefits, they understand the benefits, so you get a lot of employee support for what the board does. And the board can feel comfortable making decisions rather than having the conversations we have tonight, because it's pretty well decided before it even comes to the table. So that makes it a lot easier. So that's what's missing, and so that's why we're doing this. And that answers your question, really. So an employee should really have, they should have all that in front of them. Then they can come to you and say, wow, this is what it looks like. And so right now we don't have that. And so that explains why they feel that way. So.
any more discussion? If there's no more discussion, there's a motion on the floor. Please vote for accepting the recommendation.
No.
Yes.
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 Yes. Motion passes to accept the recommendation.
A city council has it where they push a button and it goes up on the board.
Right.
Can we do that legally?
I know.
We'll have to check with our
Yes,
parliamentarian.
can.
It'd be a lot faster.
Franklin
yeah.
Tech could build that.
Okay, anyway, we'll look into that. All right, I just thought of that.
Next
All right.
item on the agenda.
Probably have some
Let's,
students develop.
Yeah, it's break
Paul,
room.
I looked to see where there was a break, and you're talking like the next 5 things. So we're going to take a 5-minute break. It's been an hour and a half, and I agreed that we would do that once we had. So we'll take 5 minutes, and we'll meet back at, when the big hand is on the 9. Back. We're ready for item 3 of the regular agenda. Paul?
Thank you, President Koch. The funding transfer authority for the employee health plan, as we've talked about for the last months, and the graphs indicate the health plan balance has been trending down this year, and our expenses are outpacing our revenues, and we're asking for the administration asked for authority from the board to transfer up to $425,000 from the operating fund balance to the health plan fund balance to fund claims payments effective next month, September 1. We think there's a good chance that would get us through until our new rates kick in and start funding the plan for October. Those will be withheld out of payrolls in September, so this is a bridge plan. But if it does fall short, we'll be back to ask for additional, but that's our request this evening.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept the recommendation?
Move acceptance of the recommendation.
I second.
So it's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
Paul, this money, the 400,000, is that distributed by employees as a benefit for their pension?
Yes, Dr. Ritter, that will all go to the actively working employees. I mean, it'll benefit the whole group, including retirees, but it's going to be attributed to all of the active employees.
So that's how that works.
Should
Okay.
go on your benefit sheet.
Okay.
So basically, Paul, in our calculations of what we receive in premiums from our employees and what we as a district put up, we have been spending more than we've been collecting for the last 4 years.
Correct.
And this is an opportunity to take money from general revenue.
General revenue,
And
operating
add it
balance.
back into the health
Right.
insurance plan.
Yes.
That otherwise would have been funded by an increase in premiums these
Right.
past 4 years to employees.
Right. I mean, we were at $4 million balance, which was probably higher than we needed, although I hesitate to ever say you're higher than you need. But yes, in the last couple of years, it's been trending down steadily from $2 million to at the beginning of this year, it was $990,000, and it's probably $220,000 or $50,000 today as we speak. So yes, this would be, had we had a crystal ball last year and seen this coming, which is hindsight's 2020, we would have charged this to the plan as an increased premium last September. And, maybe could have forestalled this, but we didn't. So it's still time to make the premium payment and spread it out to 700 or 800 employees benefits plan with this action. And our operating fund balance, as you'll hear when we get to the information item on the financial statements, is healthy enough to absorb this. That's how we position the balance for June 30, 15, to make sure it was strong enough to sustain helping the health plan out as needed. So it can certainly sustain it at a high level. You'll hear that discussion a little bit later.
So Paul, my question is on number 3, where it says if funding is expected to fall short as the year progresses, that you basically reserve the right to increase it. Is this going to be enough? I mean, is that
Well,
less likely to happen or likely to happen?
we think this is a reasonable step for now, but to say, is it going to be enough? I mean, I can't say that with certainty. I would wish I could, but I can't. None of us have a crystal ball, but if claims subside, it's going to be more than enough. If claims run about where they're at, I think it would be enough. If claims go through the roof after we gavel close tonight over the next 2 months, it will not be enough. It's just that unknown nature of healthcare claims. Except for wellness benefits in our plan, which are discretionary, any of us could go to get a physical or have a blood drawn or something. That is discretionary. But the large percentage of claims in our plan are non-discretionary. They're just random acts that nobody can control. And so that's why I answered you like I am.
And so this is just to get us through September 30th, is that right?
This is
Or-
projected to get us through until we withhold September payrolls for October. We're trying to look through to the October timeframe with this.
And then we'll be self-sustaining for the
Right,
rest of the,
when
for the rest of the year.
The new rates take over, we're trying to dovetail with those. But if we have a spike in 4 to 6 weeks, we may be back.
The real impact on any kind of insurance, health benefits package is teacher retention. We start keeping teachers longer. We're not doing a very good job right now. We keep teachers longer, our benefits are going to go up as far as costs. So we need to get ready for that and accept that. All right, so realize that at this point. And I think hopefully we'll be doing more of this.
Okay,
That sounds crazy, but that's what it is.
so no more discussion. Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. That item has passed. Next item, accounts payable, Paul.
Yes, we have an attached bill list for payments of materials, equipment, services, salaries, and benefits in both instructional and support areas. The administration recommends that the board approve payment of the bills in the amount of $3,535,210.18.
Move approval of paying the bills.
Second.
So there's a motion and a second, discussion. No discussion? Please vote.
Yes.
Sally, we're waiting for your vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay,
Check that.
moving along.
Ron, just a second.
He did. The motion has passed. Paul, number 5.
Yes, this is the tax levy item we referenced during the hearing, and I read most of it at that time, so I would go into our administration that the Board of Education approve the school tax levy in the same amount as last year and prior years since the 2012 bond issue passed of $3.66 total, allocated as $2.75 in the general fund, $0 special revenue fund, 91 cents for debt service fund, $0 capital projects fund.
Is there a motion?
I motion to accept that.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? No discussion, please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Motion's passed. That was Linda and Gary. Next item is item number 7. Item number 7, facilities usage fee schedule.
All right. As you saw, the board is supposed to approve the usage fee for the districts for facility rental, and it's been a while since we've done that. So our policy committee reworked the usage fees and the rental fees, and we've had a lot of new fields and things added since the old policy was written and the old fee schedule. So what you have in front of you is our proposed new fee schedule. It's in your packets.
I move we accept it as stated.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion by Linda, second by Jennifer. Any discussion?
One question. How much annually does this bring in?
I don't have the answer to that. Not a lot, because a lot of the organizations that use the facilities are serving our kids, so their fees are waived. So really, it's just capturing the cost of custodial or lights. So it's not a trying to make money situation. It's really trying to be a service, but make sure that we aren't losing money, so that we're good stewards.
We will get that to you, that information.
Any other discussion? Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, that motion is passed. Paul, I'll come back to you. The pre-approval.
Yes, this is an item we visited, we passed in the May meeting. We did not have a complete board at that time, so it's been requested to bring it back. Essentially the same item, and that is pre-approval and reporting of time-sensitive payments. We have a limited number of reasons to issue time-sensitive payments in accounts in the accounting department before a Board of Education meeting. The purpose can include quick payment turnaround required by vendors, fairness and promptly reimbursing employees for personally paid school district expenses, their out-of-pocket expenses, immediate student needs, or making deposits required to place a purchase order. This will align with the board purchasing policy for payment of these bills In accordance with this pre-approval guidance, the board will be provided with a detailed report of payments issued at the monthly meeting. I'd like the secretary to add, will be issued at the monthly meeting for approval by the board. Number 3, the limited authority will apply to bills received for payment through June 30 of 16. Annually, this request will be made to the board. No cost for this. And again, we recommend the board that we pre-approve payment of these certain invoices, very narrowly defined as outlined to meet requirements. And these types of payments would be withholding taxes that we owe the IRS, the U.S. Treasury. Could be garnishments that the sheriff counties issue to us and employees that they maybe have a date to pay this over in 10 or 12 days. I mean, we have an inbox in accounting that'll be items in there tomorrow that need to be pushed along this line, or else we're going to run afoul of some third-party deadlines. So it's really again, it's the same item that was passed in May with the less, but now we have more of a complete board. We're presenting this action again for the remainder of this year.
I'll entertain a motion. Okay, Linda's moved.
Second.
And Gary has seconded. Any discussion?
Paul, at this, none of these, would any of these exceed that, these would fall under that $15,000 threshold, right, that's in the policy
Right,
that we've talked about?
Correct. If we have those items, we'll bring those to the board in advance of commitment.
And how have we handled this?
Now, sorry if I interrupted you.
That's all right.
I'm trying to think of a large, typically we'll be bringing those purchases at $15,000 to the board that go through the bid process. But let's take maybe we have 50 employees that belong to American Century for their 403B withholdings, and maybe it totals for a pay period $18,000. Well, that's employee earnings that 50 or 100 employees said, place it over here and get it invested in the stock market. It's 18,000 or something above 15. That's their earnings that they're directing us to get it in the market. That's an example of something over 15,000 that would not come to the board, but we need to get it to the market in the next few days.
It would not come to the board. It would be pre-approved, but then it would be approved by the board.
It would come to you eventually,
Yes.
but that's something could exceed 15,000 like that.
You would not hold a checkup.
We would not hold a
Right.
checkup
Okay.
because people want their money invested, that sort of thing. So it could exceed 15,000, but that'd be the nature of it. If it's an out-and-out purchase for desks, chairs, computers, the things you normally see on bids, they're coming here for permission to proceed on the bid.
Okay.
Right.
How have we handled these kinds of things to this point? Have we ever done this
As I'm
policy
describing,
before?
as I'm describing, this is a more transparent approach, a more unified approach with the board and our public to coincide with what we think has a basis in practice.
So we've been doing this already?
Yes.
Oh.
We've not brought this to the board with this communication. We've always reported all costs, but we've not asked for it in this manner. There's been various boards over the years that have dealt with this differently. This is the first time, or May was the first time I wrote it up in this manner. But it was to be more cohesive with the board and more transparent with the public. But the practice is solid, and again, without this, you run into very practical problems very quickly with the IRS, the retirement system, people's investments in the market, reimbursing employees, vendors making a request for some kind of a deposit relative to a future purchase, this sort of thing. It would really bring the payment system and the progress system to screeching, slow down and halt. Unless we met more often to approve bills.
I don't hear a motion for that, so. All right, there is a motion on the floor, though, to accept the recommendation. Any more discussion? Please vote.
Yes.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Okay. Next item, early childhood facility location.
Good evening. I want to, before we get started, I want to invite a couple community members to the table as well from the city council, like the Florida Linda. And also, we have a consultant from Deloitte. I'd like to have Chuck join us as well. And we have Kirk Higgins with us tonight. And we may ask for his services in a moment, but I think we'll get started with addressing the action item with the folks at the table. Just a quick refresher. I know that in the conclusion of our last board meeting, we had a board resolution to support the existing expansion of our early childhood facility, and one of the contingencies upon that vote was for the district to, again, reassess and look at the location that we were proposing within that. And so we set out to do that, and within that time frame, we also presented to the board an action item that basically outlined that research as far as advantages and disadvantages of alternative locations to the existing site that is proposed. In the action item itself, what we have is after the meaningful consultation, I can read this, but I think that if it's in front of you, I think that we can summarize what it was. But after the engagement that we had with the City of Joplin and the Early Childhood Facility Planning Committee, we made a determination based upon that input to propose to the board the acceptance of the facility location at the urban site that we proposed initially at the expansion approval at the last board meeting. Within this action item, you'll see that it's itemized in regards to advantages and disadvantages, benefits and disadvantages to each site and location. And with that, I want to have an opportunity to have Amanda provide you with a quick slideshow that gives some more overview and actually some visuals to those particular sites.
And also, this slideshow was shared with you via email earlier in the board meeting. If you want to access that on your computers as well, there's a few live links in there too, just an FYI.
Okay. All right, so like Mark was saying, we are proposing that we keep the same site.
Where is it? Where is
Sure.
it?
You should have received an email
Oh, yeah, okay.
earlier.
Like today, earlier,
Like
or?
Yeah.
within this board meeting.
Within this board
Oh,
meeting.
okay.
We can't access it on this computer.
Is that the same as what the?
It's the same
Yeah,
slideshow up here. It's
exact
just that if you
same
wanted to be able to have it
presentation.
in front of you, you'd have that opportunity to pull that email up and open that shared document.
Okay.
Proceed.
So some of the advantages that the team talked about for keeping the Mercy property site is that it is free to the Joplin schools as it was donated by Mercy. There's also already been an environmental assessment conducted that cost approximately $30,000 to $40,000. It is located immediately north of Irving Elementary, allowing us to partner with that school and share some resources with them. It has easy accessibility for busing. It's located in the disaster zone, making it eligible for CDBG DR funds. It's definitely our most assessed piece of land in regards to potential undermining concerns, and Mike Johnson can speak to that if you have specific questions about that. And it's also well-positioned to serve our entire district with multiple easily accessible roads. We wanted to address some of the concerns that we knew were out there as far as one concern was that whether or not it would stand alone or be connected with Irving. And what we know is that we are able to connect with Irving, or at least have some sort of reasonable walking distance, maybe a covered walkway between Irving and our center, and that would allow us for things like sharing safe rooms, maybe sharing a kitchen. However, we are budgeted to include reinforced space in our own center. So we wouldn't be depending on Irving for a safe room. It would just be accessible to us.
And in not getting too deep into the design phase of this at this point, I think that in a lot of the conversations that we've had is that there's multiple, ways in which a facility could be planted on this particular plot of land. And I think that we've also gotten word from the state, and what we've looked at is you can actually connect it if you want to, and looking at it. So it is a possibility. I think that the design phase would play out more, detail into what that might look like, but it does give us some opportunity to look at.
As far as the proximity to the water feature that the city is going to be putting in, I have a map on the next slide to show that. As you can see, the red portion is the proposed early childhood site. You can see Irving to the left. To the right is the cathedral area, and then there's the city park and water feature that is going to be placed on that land.
It's quite a distance. When you stand down there in the parking lot in the play area just north of Irving Elementary and you look toward that westerly and north direction, and at the bottom of that, it's over a rise, there's obstacles, the distance is quite a ways. I would estimate it to be close to a quarter of a mile, actually.
Troy, do we need to have water there for that park? I'm serious.
Well, I know that's a concern. That is actually one of the features that our citizens requested, because we lost our pond in Far Hill Park. But really, the primary purpose of that pond is stormwater detention.
Oh, okay.
So it helps
That
with
makes
downstream
sense. All right.
flooding, actually. That's the
All right.
primary purpose of it.
I had to ask.
And something good to keep in mind too is the distance of this water feature is actually a greater distance than the learning pond that we have in front of Soaring Heights and East Middle School currently. And that particular water feature is a non-issue for that school. Soaring Heights does house kindergarten students, so those are students that are very similar in age to the preschool students that would be in this facility.
Okay.
But that water features at East.
Right,
not Soaring Heights.
but its location is actually close to Soaring Heights, and that distance is closer than what
Than
this
this
water
distance.
feature would be.
It's on the same, as far as the campus,
Yeah.
outline.
Okay, and also the undermining, mining in this area plotted pre-tornado and post-tornado. We have extensive geotechnical work completed in this location because of the construction of former St. John's Hospital and our Irving Elementary. And here's that map right there. I think the shaded areas are the mines.
At Top Street that's Maiden Lane at the top, running horizontal.
We also wanted to address that our current center, of our enrolled students right now, we sent surveys home to find out some information about where our LMI status is, and 66% of our current students are in the, come from low-income households, 47% come from very low and extra low-income households. About 68% of our students qualified for free and reduced lunch last school year. Where this property is positioned to serve LMI students is we can see that Irving students, 77.5% of Irving students qualify for free and reduced lunch. That's even higher than the kids that I'm serving right now at the McKinley site.
Although we would add that even though that's higher than the preschool numbers, it's no doubt that McKinley has a higher free and reduced lunch rate than Irving. It's more around 85%, 83%. So there is a little bit of difference in the overall free and reduced at those two locations.
Our early childhood center, we serve kids from every so to speak, district for elementary. We've never not sent a kid to an elementary school. Every elementary school gets some of our students every year. Last year, we had most of our students coming from the East Feeder Zone, which would make sense because we're sitting at McKinley. However, the year before that, it was more students in the North Feeding Zone. And the year before that, when I looked, it was the South Feeder Zone. So it really just, we're touching students from all areas of Joplin. I can say that confidently.
And are those SPED students?
That's our entire population. That's not just SPED
And
students.
so those that are special ed are being bused somewhere else, and those that are not, they're responsible for their own transportation.
Right.
And they're responsible to get to your center
Yes,
currently?
right.
Only SPED's bus to you currently?
That's right.
Can I
Which
ask?
gives
Yes,
credence to the
sure.
need for the perhaps, I'm sorry, Jennifer, which gives credence again to the success and potential success of a daycare to support that, so parents don't have to leave midday after an early setting to come pick their kids up at noon and vice versa for PM.
You've kind of gone back and forth when we talked about it being the daycare portion, and then you talked about the special ed kids. Is the focus of this more to serve the special ed kids, or is the focus of this center mostly to serve preschool?
Preschool.
Preschool.
I mean, our priorities always are special needs students, because we can't say sorry, you qualified as a special ed student, but you have to go on a waiting list. That's not prohibited. So
Right.
those students are priority, but we're allowed to have peers in those classes with special ed students. Also, we have classes for Title I, and we would have fee-based preschool also.
So are the special ed kids, are those preschool age kids?
Yes,
Or
3 to 5-year-olds.
only, so you're not serving any from?
No.
The older, okay.
This is before kindergarten. And-
Right.
And actually, we have a requirement, you know, and compelled by law to serve early childhood special ed population.
Right, right. I just wasn't sure what your
Yeah, the age group is 3 to
focus
5,
was. If
and
it was
once they
to serve the special ed and the low income fill in after that, but your focus is special ed kids, or is it preschool and you just are able to, just trying to figure out what your priority is, I guess?
You know, coming from a background of 20 years in special education, I can always say that the special education population will always be my priority, my focus, and continue to be so while we also serve the rest of the students. So that's a personal thing.
You had a waiting list of 133, none of those are special ed.
No, absolutely not. We do have a waiting list of 133 as of today, and like I said, if they're found eligible for special education, we put them in a spot that I've saved for special ed students.
And there's a potential too, if we run out of space and we have special education students and we're at capacity, there is a potential that a non-typical developing student could
Would
be
have to
pushed
be
out of the
pushed
program.
out.
Right. So 133 on your waiting list, but you don't know, like, you can, like, give us specifics on geographically where they're from?
I could do that, absolutely.
I think if we're going to put,
I'd
you
like
know,
to know.
if we're going to
that.
spend $10 million, we would like to put it where the population's going to be serviced. I mean,
But that
I don't-
changed each year.
My 133 kids that are sitting, yes, Linda?
That changed each year.
Well,
It
we don't-
does. It
We don't know
changes.
that. They don't have the data.
Yeah, I do know that.
Well,
I do know
that's
that.
what she was just saying,
I know
that
that
year
in
to year.
2012 and 13, there were more students in the South feeder zones, more at Irving. I know in 2013 and 14, there was more in the North feeder zones at Cecil Floyd. And I know that last year, we sent more kids to East feeder zones, Royal Heights. That's it. I mean, that's how we've always, I mean, we transition every student, regardless if they're special ed model or Title I. We know where they're going, and we do transition visits there. So I know exactly where every student.
But the
has-
special ed, you're right, they'll be bused wherever. It's
Right.
those that are, and how do you,
I mean, if you-
how are you naming them? What's
Well, they're just those
Just
that
a
are non-special
typical-
ed.
the
yeah.
non-special ed students, that's where the population needs to check. Because there may be a lot of special ed kids coming from the south, but they'll be bused wherever it is. Those, if we're trying to open this up to more, then we need to know where those more are located.
I think that what Amanda's also revealing to this is that, you know, it's arguable, you know, looking at this, but what we're showing is that we do serve children district-wide. I mean, from border to border, north, south, east, and west, attend the McKinley site now, and that's without transportation, okay? And it would go without stating, again, that if we move it to a couple miles down the road to an Irving site, that we would still get the same participation. We still have the same low LMI parents getting their children to our site at McKinley. I don't think there'd be a difference, because we're just talking about going up the road, 7th Street, and over again, over to McLeod.
I need to say this, that, you know, the demand for early childhood is going to be huge in the future. So this site's not going to be the last site we're going to, you know, develop for early childhood. We're going to have another site. And so we're going to have to think about that in the future as well.
Sure.
I know I could say that because I won't be here after a year, but I guarantee you that's what's going to happen.
So Jeff, are you thinking they're centered more in one area of
No,
town?
I want to know. I have no idea. And I just think we got one shot to do this, right? And it's got to be quick. And if it's $60,000 it costs us to get it in the right spot, it may be worth $60,000 to get it.
So you don't think people would drive across town is what your concern is, or that they won't have the ability to get their kids there? Is that why
I
you're
think the
concerned?
ability is probably more of it, because I think transportation is an issue. And-
Transportation is an issue for our families, absolutely. I
Right,
keep
and
data on
that's
that.
the- yeah.
But what I'm trying to say, I guess, is that we send kids to every elementary. We send sped kids, we send regular, typical kids to each elementary every year. There's never an elementary school that's not represented.
But the typical kids that are coming now are
Even
paying
typical
$50 a
kids.
week.
No.
We're going to, no,
Not Title I students, just model peers.
okay.
And again, I'll bring us back to, again, what the statement is saying, and to me, is that, you know, regardless of whether it's 2 miles from where it's at now to an Irving site, is that currently we are serving children east, west, north, and south at that location as a center-based program. And those are parents that are getting their kids to the school, and that is with an LMI of over 60%. And looking at, I don't think that's going to change. And that's
You don't think
based
there's
on
going to be a
history.
demand difference when it goes to 176 versus 50?
I just do not believe that's going to be a change.
Percentage-wise, you're saying?
Nobody will pay 176 a week since we took the 2 week to 6, or 6 week to 2 years off the table.
You mean
It's like
it
90
will,
a
you
week
said
or
nobody.
something.
We're looking at half days now. There's nobody that we can, that I would
There's nobody that's
anticipate that
before
would
and
be there
after.
all day in daycare because the.
They'll have to be, and they'll be in a preschool program half their
Okay.
day and daycare half, so,
Enrollment in preschool is required for the half-day
for them to be
child.
access to daycare.
So now it's 85?
88.
88.
Yeah.
Question for the city. Since we're talking about city funds, is the location issue a concern to the city, and if so, what's the city's position?
I don't think we have a position. I mean, it's this body that needs to decide the location. You know the best location to serve your clientele.
Okay, thanks.
I think that we could reference the environmental assessment in doing that. The environmental assessment itself indicated support or basically validation of that site being appropriate for the LMI and for the population to be served.
That's included in the land survey?
Do what?
I said that's included in the land survey?
That is through the environmental assessment that was conducted on that particular piece of land.
So an environmental assessment will tell you if that serves your LMI and serves your community?
Right, through that process, the environmental assessment indicates in there that that property is in the blighted area, is in the disaster zone, and also is in an area that has the LMI population that can be served. It's indicated in their environmental assessment itself.
Is that right?
Not
I'm
quite.
confused.
I can tell you.
Environmental assessment addresses developmental issues of the property, not necessarily describe, it doesn't describe the universe of the population it will be serving. I mean, that would be left up to this board here.
Has the assessment, what did it comment about the suitability of the property? I haven't seen it, but do I comment on the
Yeah, and
property?
that's why I brought my consultants here to keep me from saying the wrong thing. I think the most, I mean, one of the things I did see that as far as the lead and cadmium content, our park has some issues, but I don't believe the property that's proposed for this facility did have anything wrong with it.
Does he need the microphone? He needs the microphone.
So we did soil sampling as part of the environmental assessment, and it shouldn't have that problem.
When we were looking at where to put Irving, and Mike might want to join this conversation, we initially were going to move it more north, and we couldn't because of the undermining, and so we had to design the building of Irving as the bi-level that it is, and exactly where it is, angling out exactly how it is because of that. So is your environmental assessment saying, I guess what I'm asking is, did somebody look at the previous work we did for Irving, and we couldn't move Irving north, so how is it we can now put a preschool there when we couldn't build Irving north? And here comes Mike. And Kurt. Come on up, it's a party.
On the property, and we've asked Kurt that question early on in this process, and we feel that with the microphone, sorry, we feel that with a good architect and a good engineer at the table, just like we did at Irving, that this site is workable from that perspective with the undermining. And we've looked at that spot specifically. Kurt did a feasibility drawing on that very early on before the EA.
Answering your question specifically about moving north, I brought my site plan of Irving. And there was actually
the microphone?
Sorry. There were actually 2 mine shafts immediately north of Irving that prevented us from shifting it, but then you skip over those and get on the other side of the paved street that's there, and then you're away from those. So that may be what you're referencing, but that's what comes to my mind.
Okay.
I did the site layout for Irving.
So like we've dug down how deep to make sure there's not any more mine shafts there?
Actually, there would be, I believe there would be more soil borings needed for this site. There was reference that there's been extensive geotech work done in that area, and I think that's referencing the general area, but I haven't seen, and maybe I haven't been privy to it, but actual soil borings on this site. So if this site is selected, there will need to be geotech work done, and nobody should think that there's no mining on this site, because you can throw a rock in Joplin and you're going to hit some mining. You guys know that. I think you had a safe room that had a sinkhole open up.
That kind of testing would be needed regardless of what site we chose?
That's correct. But there are mine features on this site, no question about it. But you design around them.
Isn't this where the hospital was standing?
Part of
No, it was
Where the
It's
hospital parking lot fell in.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was doctor's
Hospital could
offices.
stand- Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Pretty close enough.
The hospital was built over mine
It's
shafts.
actually south of it, where the clinic was, isn't it?
I don't know.
Yes.
So it's south of both. It's,
Parking lot there.
it's more like where the long-term Brady building was located, I believe.
It's that parking lot, is the
In
site.
regards to the integrity and the way that we might consider the facility.
Dr. Wheeler.
Yes, when we did Irving Elementary, there was
The Brady
the
building.
horizontal drifts, and we drilled that, found solid rock, and we designed the foundation such that it's on like drill piers, so that if there is a collapse underneath, you span that. And
Hoping to stand like a table with legs.
basically, yes, that's correct. And this site may be similar, but there's some advantages that's been shown, why this site's, there's some advantage to it. I mean, it's being given to you. I think there's grant money tied to it. But, it's got some challenges with it, but every site does. I'm involved with the Leff and Autism Center. It's got mining underneath it.
Is that Freeman's?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, Paula Baker was excited about the opportunity of having these two very close. But anyway, okay.
Mandy, how many students are we currently serving?
188.
And how many are we going to serve?
I can serve about 35 more this year. I'm
No,
saving
she's
those
talking about
35
In the new
spots for-
building, we're
okay.
going to serve, is it 400?
425.
425. Okay. And we're
That's making some estimations on how many kids are going to,
Sure.
yeah.
And so, right now.
Is the 188 all day?
No, that's total.
Okay.
That's all done.
So no or yes?
2 half-day sessions,
Okay.
so like 90-ish in the morning, 90-ish in the afternoon.
90 and 90.
So we're serving about 90 and 90.
210 and 210?
238 and 238.
Okay. So in the 90-90 we're serving, what percent of those are special ed?
About 40-ish% right now.
40%. And so we're serving all the currently identified special ed,
Yes.
currently. There
Yes.
could be some more pop up.
Right.
So we're
And
going to
that's
say
what
there's
those spots
45
are saying.
students right now that are sped kids.
Yeah.
Morning, 45 afternoon.
Right.
Do I have that right? Okay. So then we're going to go to 238? Is that what
In the
you
morning.
said?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, so
And so
those
they're gonna-
238 in the morning, about 70 to 80 will be special needs, and another 70 or 80 will be special needs in the afternoon. We would like to increase that.
Okay,
And
so are you
that's just-
saying, go ahead.
Go ahead. And then, okay, so then we'll also have peers in the morning.
Mhm.
Some of those kids will stay in the afternoon. So that 238 means that's how many kids will be in the building at any given time. But we'll be serving closer to 400-ish different kids. It's hard to make estimations on how many kids are going to stay and how many are going to go on home, but it's just kind of a fair.
One of the things I'm trying to understand is the percentage of students that are special ed right now, they get bus transportation.
Yes.
So now you think there's an equal portion of students out there that haven't been identified yet that are sped and will get bus transportation?
I
Because
think we have that potential.
It's potentially, when we look at other districts about our size, we're serving a little bit under what they are serving. And so if you think of a population of having about 11% of your population having special needs, we're a little bit under that number on how many special needs 3 to 5-year-olds we're serving. So we think that there's a potential for increasing that. if we increased it or if we didn't increase it, we could use Title I preschool for some students. We could also do fee-based. So regardless of how many kids are special needs, the other spots will be filled or have potential of being filled by other students.
But those students are going to have to find transportation.
Yes.
It's just the sped.
Right.
As they always have. And something too, and we made this point at the last board meeting too, is that through some enhanced child find practices that we're seeing now, we have found ourselves with a waiting list of over 130 and doing that. And within that 130, we're already seeing a suspicion of possible disability.
Sure.
So we have, yes, we will increase based upon the way we're now using child find strategies.
Is there any way we will ever get to the point that we would transport all of these children, just like we transport almost all Irving kids, because there's not a neighborhood there?
If the government would ever get into the practice of fully funding special education and other services and get back to transportation for individuals, Title I funds would increase, there's a possibility. But at this point right now, we have a very stringent Title I budget, which is what we used when I first came to Joplin for transportation, and we cut that back.
Mr. President?
Yes, ma'am.
But we didn't lose any slots either. We kept having filling those kids in there.
And there are occasionally,
Just a
I
minute,
mean,
please. Point of order. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, point of order. You asked me to serve as parliamentarian. And right now, our discussion is on a topic that we don't have any documentation. There are a lot of figures being thrown about. It's not in our packet. What we are prepared to discuss is the recommendation.
Okay.
And we really ought to have a motion on the floor, either to defeat it or to support the motion, and that will help narrow our discussion relative
That's a fair point.
to what is brought to the board, and the board is prepared for what is in their packet.
So is that a motion?
Well, I was acting as parliamentarian.
I
Do
see.
you want me to take that hat off? And I will move the recommendation as submitted.
Okay.
I second it.
So it's been moved and seconded, and now we can discuss.
And then I'll just tell you that as parliamentarian, if we wander off the language that's here in this recommendation and now in a motion, in the form of a motion, the discussion will be ruled not germane to the motion.
So,
Okay, so I don't know if this is germane or not, so you'll just have to tell me,
Yeah.
Sally.
Well,
So,
this is what we are to be voting on the location.
right.
That's what the motion is.
Okay, I think this is germane then, because it's about location. So in the past, the community has said they want to continue having neighborhood schools. It feels as though we're getting away from that. So listening to the community, does the community still want neighborhood schools, or do we know that?
How does this impact the emphasis of neighborhood schools? If we're still doing a center-based early childhood special ed program
Well,
and
because
early
it's
childhood app.
all the way over just about as west as you can go, and people,
We're still doing a center-based program, and what we're offering to the district still remains a center-based program. And then some, we're gonna be able to expand that. Right now, where we're at, we are handcuffed to having a 130 student waiting list.
oh, I want to have the program, I want to have this school. Yeah.
why don't we finish the rest of your,
Can I,
Okay,
so
sure,
can I
I will.
finish my
Okay.
statement before I was interrupted?
we have considered some other sites. Emerson Elementary is one that's been considered, and it's the blue.
Actually, I don't know that we can do that, Madam Parliamentarian, based on your motion. I believe the presentation is actually ended
Yeah, I
with
think
that
so.
motion, and so not to
No, that's okay.
not
I
to
think
not
you're
counsel you
right.
on parliamentary procedure, but I don't believe further discussion is appropriate. However,
No,
let's-
I think,
No,
discussion
I'm talking about
is,
presentation.
not presentation.
There's further
Discussion,
presentation.
yes.
But, and whether this is direct or tangentially related to the motion, I do have a process comment, inquiry. You and I are members of the Facilities Committee. I'm not particularly certain about what that committee is supposed to do, but I'm somewhat surprised that a facility proposal of this kind would come to the board without any communication with or inquiry of or information to that committee of this board. Seems like a curious way to pursue the support of the board, but nevertheless, I might ask why the Facilities Committee was not involved.
this whole, I mean, Irving Elementary, or the site next to Irving Elementary's been, we've been saying that for a long time, and we really didn't know until last week when you all said, or last month when you all said, maybe this isn't the best site. Did we have to go back and kind of figure out why we hadn't ever, I mean, that has just always been, once Mercy donated that, that's where we were gonna put it. I mean, that's kind of,
I
Not
don't
very
think it's,
strategic.
I don't think
know
it's
that that's an
necessarily an issue
adequate
with
answer to
them.
the
no, it's not.
question,
There was a facilities committee last school year with principals, teachers, community members, and they met monthly, and they put together a recommendation. I've sent you guys that earlier, because
Is this board committee
But-
new?
Yeah.
Well, you two are new on it, but the facilities committee has
I'm new
been,
to the board.
and it was on the long range, on that long range plan, because I read what you sent us
And the
today.
charge of the committee is to do what?
I don't know, you guys that are on facilities committee.
I think we got an overlap of issues here, because
Yeah.
basically this is a committee that's been functioning, and then you guys came along, and basically the recommendation was already made before you guys came along.
right.
But then when we ask for it to be reconsidered, I think what Gary is saying, that he believes he and Sally maybe should have been invited to come to the discussion.
It's a process issue, and I don't think it's necessarily
Well,
an issue with them, but
I think, though,
it's a
that
good
since
point.
the board specifically last month instructed staff to move forward with a review of location as a specific charge from the board, that for a facilities location proposal to be presented without any consultation with the board's facilities committee, I just happen to think that's a mistake.
I agree.
I agree. I'm looking at the 2013 org chart, 2014. Only on the 2015 does the facilities committee show up. So it may have been new last year that was just added.
No, because Mike and
Well,
Jim were on facilities.
we've explored this question enough, and I'm
It's been on there, they've been
Point-
on there a
point made,
while.
and so-
Just may not have been on the
Just wanna make a point.
organizational chart.
I think it's a
We
valid
still have a
point.
motion on the floor, and we can still discuss it until somebody decides otherwise, until the chair rules
Your
otherwise.
presentation.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, I don't think that is in order. I think the board can discuss the motion, but I don't believe,
Right.
I
It's
don't believe there
discussion on
can
the
be a further
motion.
presentation now.
Yeah. We've got our documentation, and that's it, unless the motion is withdrawn, and, I
If
mean,
she wants
that's.
to withdraw the
that's-
motion, the presentation.
That's your.
Who was my seconder? Are you willing?
Sure.
I'll withdraw the motion.
Very nicely done. Thank you, Sally.
And you can continue.
Now you may
Okay.
continue.
Emerson Elementary is the greenish area right there. Some things that have been discussed is that if we demoed that property, that is not eligible for the funding that we're asking for, so that would have to be something that Joplin Schools was willing to pay for it to be demoed. Also, there was, yes, sir.
Were we paid to demolish that from insurance funds?
On the next,
I'll address that. And Paul, you might be even doing this, but we did receive insurance revenues for that, but during the time, we were geared toward a priority of getting school open, so those funds were repurposed to getting schools open for that. So what would happen is if we were to try and use Emerson as a facility, we would have to first put up the first approximately $1.5 million before CDBG funds would be activated for that particular site. So yes, we did have funds there, but to get school open at the time, they were prioritized and repurposed to other activities to get school open for post-tornado.
also, we would have to conduct an environmental assessment. We're a little concerned that if we changed something this large at this point, that we may be rejected for funding, and the city of Joplin would not be able to recover the costs that they've already incurred. Correct.
Yeah, that's correct.
Do you have any-
Unless you want to ask our council, they'll cover
What
those
cost
costs.
have you, has the city incurred for this?
Excuse me?
What, how
Just
much?
the cost of the environmental?
I got an update today, and I told Dr. Ritter a couple weeks ago, it was approximately 60,000, but our invoices came through, it's around 87,000 right now.
And what have you done what's been done for that 87,000?
Well, the majority of that, I believe, is 60,000, correct me if I'm wrong, but 60,000 was environmental review, 20,000 was staff time, consultant time working on the project.
Okay. The Old South Middle School property is in yellow. Additional funds would be necessary to prepare the site appropriately for construction. Mike Johnson can speak to about exactly what that would entail. Mike?
To prepare the Old South site for construction, you need to remember that we demoed the building, but at the time we did not demo it in such a way as to prepare a building pad for future construction. So the first thing you'd have to do is go excavate the basement out and prepare that if, in fact, the building was going to set over the top of where the old building was. You dig that out and put that in differently so it would be proper to set a building over the top of it. And that would be the same as well for Emerson if we were to demo it. And one point of clarity on Emerson, we did not get insurance money to demo it. We got insurance money to repair it.
The old Irving Elementary property, which is in yellow, it's right there by 26th Street. The biggest disadvantage is just where it sits as far as accessibility issue for buses, traffic. I'm sure Debbie can speak to that.
We have the same basement issues there as well.
Here's our current facility. We do have to go outside when changing classes. It rains inside those hallways, and there's us doing some snow angels when it snowed because there was so much snow in the hallways. I was supposed to get people to laugh, but that's okay.
You looked injured, I couldn't laugh at that, I'm sorry.
You can see on the left corner where the end of the trailer is, and then that's where the McKinley Safe Room is across the playground. It's about a block away that we're traveling to get kids over to the safe room. Security is a big issue at this point. We have a different door broken every single day, constantly battling doors. We don't have any room for growth. We've got a social worker, nurse, and workroom in one area, school psych and conference room in one area, speech in the cafeteria in another area. Another constant upkeep. We've got somebody kicking in the skirting.
What about that site there? Can you build on that?
It's McKinley's soccer field, and I think that they were
haven't had it for
planning on
years.
having it back.
They do have a lot of property
They've
on the
got
back
property
side of
that's in the
McKinley.
neighborhood.
I'm not sure that Bailey might know this, if that's an eligible
It
site.
wouldn't be eligible for CDBG funds. It's not in the disaster zone.
Well,
Correct.
it's not disaster zone, but that's not how we're making connection to the disaster. It's the students you're serving, so.
That's true.
It's HUD, isn't it?
Yeah, HUD. You have to meet a national objective. You can do it by what's called area of benefit, by locating the area you're in, but that population you're serving has to be in that same area. But I understand this is district-wide.
Right.
So we have to base it on, we lost so many daycare units because of the tornado, and we're replacing those, or trying to, with this project.
And this particular population was also displaced due to the tornado. We're also making that connection.
What population is?
The early childhood population was displaced due to the tornado. Previously, they were housed in this facility. Then they were relocated because this facility became a temporary facility for 9th and 10th grade students.
And in closing, I'd just like to say that we really don't care where we go as long as we go somewhere. And the longer that this is, we're going to continue to be in trailers until some decisions are made. And it seems like if we don't pick the site that we're proposing, we're going to be costing money and also pushing off that timeline. And that's just us in trailers longer. It's getting to where it's, the first 4 years, but this year has been, we're only 2 days into school, and I'm already just constant issues with facilities, so.
We've already approved the Early Childhood Education Center, so that's not an issue. The issue is, I think that we should be strategic where we place it and not just convenient.
And my point is, the longer that if we don't go with what we're proposing, then that's longer, we're gonna have to go back and propose our project, which is longer on the timeline, right?
And we say we're making 100-year decisions. I've heard that said a bunch.
Yeah.
You know.
Did we consider moving early childhood to Washington Ed? That building was renovated for Irving. It had air conditioning.
I think it only had, you were there that year, right?
I think probably address.
Yeah, we
Can
had-
wait a minute,
Okay,
wait a minute.
sorry.
Yes, sir.
Didn't we have a community representative committee?
If you were to review the findings that we had from our.
No, who was on that committee? No, who was on that? No. What kind of people were on that committee?
We had administrators, we had community, we had people from MSSU, we had, there was
teachers and
approximately
parents.
35 to 40 people that participated on that. Jeff Cope was on that committee.
Okay, so you had a major committee that was looking at this. Okay, this was their recommendation.
It was our recommendation.
Okay, so after all that work, we're basically saying to the board then, or the board is saying to them, we need to go back and revisit this, right?
When I say recommendation in this, there
Oh,
was.
I thought they recommended. Oh.
There was a mention of it as.
Oh, I misunderstood that. Okay, I'm backing off.
No, but you're on the right path, because within the presentation to the board and within that side, it does make mention of the fact of the exploration of that based upon the sites that were already in place not being adequate. So I believe, I don't remember, I've read that in there at one point, but there is a mention of the Irving site as being strongly considered for this.
We've got it right here. We're going to find that slide and read it.
I just want to make sure that we need to honor that committee. The committee made the recommendation for the site, but after all that study, then we got to be careful. Because anytime we want to bring a committee together, they're going to say, well, you didn't listen to us last time.
I don't recall the exact language, but I did read a mention of that through the committee's process.
I just want to know what they recommended. That's my question.
What page is that?
I think it was
Are
after
you
the South
talking
Middle
about for
School.
Washington or for,
I think it's at South.
for early
Early childhood.
childhood? It's
you were
referenced
on.
in
Yep.
the presentation, Amanda, if you want to go back.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That
Mr.
slide
President?
there?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a comment. I think there are two fairly compelling reasons to support the location. One of them is, I think it would be a really good statement for the district to make, to build another facility in the heart of the tornado zone. I think that's important in terms of community relationships. But more important is the proximity to
It's
the
right there on page
new
20.
autism center. Statistically, the largest increase in disabilities is in autism. And I think that the relationship, the potential relationship, the proximity of this location to the autism school is of extreme value to the future of the district. It's going to be,
That is the recommendation of that committee.
I mean, it's walking distance. And I just think it would be a huge missed opportunity to build, to have an opportunity to build an early childhood center practically adjacent to the new autism school and to miss it. I think that would be a fumble. That's my opinion.
Mr. Chairman, you ready for a motion?
I will accept the motion.
I move we approve the recommendation as presented.
Okay,
Second.
okay. Now, Pat, make sure you get this because it's opposite now.
Yeah.
Ron has moved and Sally is seconded. We don't want to get that wrong.
That's right.
Hearing no further discussion, please vote.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No. So the motion has passed. So, thank you, board.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
So what is this? From a different group?
There was, then you moved down, that was Ron's.
Oh, yeah, we got one more thing here, is that right?
Is that what it was?
The financial statements.
Financial statements.
That Ron asked about.
Oh, yeah, Ron moved financial
Yeah,
statements to
Ron,
the
number
end.
7, yeah, sorry.
That's number 7.
Number 7F, we pulled out of the consent.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Ron?
My reason for requesting this was, it's an information item, not an action item, but as I was reviewing the financials, I had a couple of questions come to mind because it's a preliminary view of our last fiscal year end. And the first point that I wanted to ask Paul about was what actual year-end transfers were made at year-end on the different fund balances versus the maximums that he had approval to do. So we know what actual transfers were made.
And the answer to that is we made the maximum transfers of the, I believe it was 3.3 million from that one action in June. And because we have sufficient funds in the operating fund, we brought over, as we talked about since that June meeting, the maximum transfers allowed. So it's in the range of 3.7 or so million dollars.
Yep. Thank you. And then probably the more important thing that caught my eye was an increase in our fund balances. And as we all remember, that one of the concerns in the audit was the low surplus levels that the district had gotten to. And as I understand it, total fund balances at the beginning of the year was $7.5 million. They ended the year at 15.8. That's an increase of $8.3 million for the year. So I'd like for Paul to kind of give us an overview of what caused that increase, and it's a dramatic, very positive increase.
And is there more?
That's what we're in here.
Excuse, what was that last part?
Is there more?
No, I think that's what the amounts will show at the end of year with the audit, and we are going to do a presentation in October to fully vet the financials from June 30 and the journey we've been on the last several years in a work session the second Tuesday of October. But most of the growth in the balance were due to timing changes, collecting grants that we had expended funds in the prior year or two, and some of the entitlements and grants came back to us in this year, as well as we had the that levy that we adopted a year ago, whereby we reduced the debt service levy at 30 cents and increased the operating levy for 1 year because we were fearful that the state withholdings might remain throughout the year. We wanted to protect our budget by having more in operating in case the state monies did not come through. Fortunately, that did not happen. So, but because our debt service fund, we were advised by our financial advisor we could do without that 30 cents for 1 year. We recommended that we leave that in the operating fund, and 2.4 million of that jump is from that 30 cents that came over on this one-time adjustment, and that added to the growth to make us much more healthy in Fund 1, operating fund also. So Ron's right, the operating fund has improved immensely in a matter of 1 year, primarily to those two things, and those are balances that are healthier. We've talked in years past about getting back to 25%. Those are basically one-time monies, so we have to treat them like one-time monies. Either they're in balances, let's keep them there, or if we're going to expend any of those, like an infusion of monies for the health plan that you approved tonight with that $425,000 transfer, you know, we're hopeful that's a once or possibly 1.5 or 2 times thing, but we can't. Just a reminder, as we have those improved balances, we can't take recurring expenses against those, or we'll be back, you know, in a lower balance. We want to, the boards in the past have said, let's try to get back to 25% balance. This puts us around 18 to 20%, and it's a good starting point on the way to 25% or wherever this board wants to go in the future.
State average on reserves is 26, by the way,
Okay.
across the state of Missouri.
But at the beginning of the year, we were 11. That's an awesome improvement in 1 year.
And again, we're going to bring to the board in the work session in October a full financial review of this journey and where we're at today.
Make sure you guys know everything. If you don't, it's your fault.
So that was just an information item, no action.
Yes.
Any announcements?
I just want to make a statement to the board regarding the Early Childhood Center. I really think it was, I feel very clumsy about all this because it basically was an overlap. And so I can give you the assurance that we will use our committees on the board more often. I don't know if you really want to be used, but anyway, I do think that we're going to have to be able to be more transparent, more understanding of that, and so I apologize for that. And I really do think we were up against a timeline. You know, in my career, I have found this always to be the case. When you chase the money, you run into problems. We're chasing money here. We're chasing the money to pay for the facilities, and really, you can't say no to $10 million. And so I really think that's really part of what put us in a bind tonight. We had to make a decision, otherwise we're going to run into a major problem with the city trying to get that money. So anyway, I apologize. I appreciate all the discussion that went back and forth. I could feel some tension, which isn't so bad, just as long as I didn't have to cut it. Anyway, so just want to make that statement. We need to go into closed session here pretty quick.
So I take a motion to move to closed session stating RSMO 610.021 for legal actions, hiring, firing, disciplining, and promoting a particular employee. Anyone like to move that motion?
Like to? I will reluctantly.
Reluctantly, Gary has moved that, and a second. I'll second it because I can. Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you, everyone.